Chapter 3408. Zhou Xiaowei was scared out of his wits. Zhou Xiaowei sneered. Miss Mei Su, I've been very polite to you. I'm giving you face by asking for Master Zhuo's things. If you don't want to give me face, that's fine too. There are still many captives in the castle and mansion, and I'll kill one every 2 hours, until you agree to my position. Zhou Xiaowei snorted in his heart. He had investigated and found out that Zhuowen had given Mei Su a lot of crimson moon starwave milk. That was a heaven-level divine herb, extremely precious. He had searched Mei Su's body and did not find any crimson moon starwave milk in her spiritual ring. He knew that Mei Su had hidden the crimson moon starwave milk. Sure enough, Mei Su's body trembled when she heard Zhou Xiaowei's threat. Her watery eyes were filled with tears, as if she was about to cry. Zhou Xiaowei looked at Mei Su in silence and smiled. Miss Mei Su, it seems that in your heart, the people in the Castellan mansion can't even compare to the crimson moon starwave milk. With that, Zhou Xiaowei waved his hand. Immediately, his subordinates brought in a disheveled figure from outside. Like Mei Su, this figure's limbs were tied up and his face was filled with fear. Kill him, Zhou Xiaowei said without hesitation. His men were meticulous in their work. They held a large blade and slashed down. The figure did not even struggle before his head was separated from his body and his divine soul dissipated. This is the first one. Miss Mei Su, we're not in a hurry. There are many people in the Castellan mansion. Killing one in 2 hours is enough for many days. Take your time and think about it. There's no need to rush. Zhou Xiaowei laughed happily when he saw Mei Su lying on the ground in fear. No, Zhou Xiaowei, I beg you to let them go. I'll tell you where the crimson moon starwave milk is kept. Mei Su pleaded. That's right. Save me the trouble. Tell me. As long as you tell me, I won't let the people in the Castellan mansion suffer. Zhou Xiaowei said with his eyes lit up. There's a passageway under the bed in my room. It leads to a secret room. The scarlet moon starwave milk that Big Brother Zhuo gave me is in that secret room. Mei Su said weakly as her head drooped. Zhou Xiaowei was proud as he ordered Mei Su's men. Soon his men returned. They there and their men and Mei Su. There was indeed a secret room under Mei Su. And they there 3 jade bottles. When Zhou Xiaowei received the 3 jade bottles, he first opened the cork of one of the jade bottles. Instantly, an extremely dense medicinal power gushed out. Furthermore, it was accompanied by multicolored light that instantly filled the entire hall. As is translation. And is translation. Is translation of translation. Is translation. The moment they smelled the fragrance, they felt as if their internal organs had been reborn. It was too comfortable. Zhou Xiaowei immediately closed the bottle stopper and opened the other 2 jade bottles one after another. They were also gushing with multicolored light, and the medicinal efficacy was astonishing. T.S. Haft, he knew that he had struck it rich. He had obtained 3 bottles of the crimson moon starwave milk. Every drop of the crimson moon starwave milk was priceless. The value of 3 bottles of the crimson moon starwave milk was immeasurable. Everyone in the main hall found it hard to calm down. When they smelled the fragrance, they knew that the thing in the jade bottle was extremely beneficial to them. It could allow them to rapidly advance. However, they did not dare to act rashly, as Zhou Xiaowei was their leader. He was a divine array master with a high status. None of you are allowed to tell anyone about the crimson moon starwave milk. If anyone dares to, I'll make them wish they were dead. Of course, I'll give each of you a drop of the crimson moon starwave milk as a reward for keeping a secret. Zhou Xiaowei looked at everyone in the main hall with hostility. They nodded and did not dare to disobey Zhou Xiaowei. When Mei Su saw that Zhou Xiaowei had obtained the 3 jade bottles, she quickly said, Zhou Xiaowei, now that you've obtained the items, shouldn't you let the people of the Castellan mansion go? Zhou Xiaowei glanced at Mei Su and chuckled. Let them go? Young Mistress Mei Su, you're too naive. Qi Gaoming has already given the order to kill everyone in Hongshan Divine City, except for you. No one is to be spared. Since Qi Gaoming has given the order, how would I dare to disobey it? Am I right? Mei Su's body stiffened. She looked at Zhou Xiaowei in disbelief and said, "Are you going to break your promise?" "Miss Mei Su, you're mocking me. I didn't break my promise. I said that I won't let your people suffer. I'll make them die a painful death. Didn't you understand what I meant? But it doesn't matter. Now you should understand what I meant." Zhou Xiaowei revealed a cunning smile. "Zhou Xiaowei, you'll die a horrible death." Mei Su was so angry that her body trembled. Her beautiful eyes were filled with helplessness. Unfortunately, Zhou Xiaowei didn't care about Mei Su's feelings. He gave the order to kill everyone in the city lord's mansion. The subordinates in the main hall received the order and walked out of the main hall. They were ready to kill all the people who were tied up outside the main hall. However, as soon as these subordinates walked out of the main hall, a terrifying and vast energy swept over and smashed down fiercely. Instantly, these subordinates were annihilated into powder before they could even let out a scream. Zhou Xiaowei's face changed slightly. He sat up on a main seat and looked at the main hall's entrance with an ugly expression. He could vaguely see two figures walking over slowly. "Who are you?" Zhou Xiaowei's body trembled. The attack just now was too terrifying. It gave him a feeling that he couldn't reach them. Zhou Xiaowei knew that the two of them must be experts. They might even be stronger than Qi Gaoming. He was cautious and puzzled. Since when did Qi Gaoming and Mei Ying, who were foreign experts, appear in the Massacre Heavenly Domain? "Zhou Xiaowei, I just left the Massacre Heavenly Domain and you can't recognize me." A cold voice resounded in the main hall. It was as loud as a bell, and it echoed in the main hall. Zhou Xiaowei's eyes narrowed when he heard the voice. He couldn't believe it. He pointed at the figure in front of him and said, "You? Are you?" At this moment, the two figures had completely entered the main hall. Zhou Xiaowei finally saw their faces. Zhou Xiaowei was very familiar with one of the figures. It was the protector of Hongxian City, Ying Jie. When Zhou Xiaowei saw Ying Jie and the black-clothed youth, he fell to the ground as though he had seen a ghost. Chapter 3409. I'm back. Haha. Zhou Xiaowei, you have a good memory. You still remember me. Zhuowen said sarcastically. At this moment, Zhou Xiaowei was frightened. He subconsciously trembled all over. Back then, the deterrence that Zhuowen brought to him was too great. Even now, he was still somewhat affected. That was why he was so shocked when he saw Zhuowen. But soon, Zhou Xiaowei thought of something and calmed down. He took out an array flag and threw it out. Then, he formed a seal with both hands. Instantly, the aura of the entire hall changed. A terrifying killing intent filled the entire hall. Battle cries and the neighs of war horses resounded in the hall. The hall was filled with the stench of blood and decay. Ying Jie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, immediately paled when he sensed the terrifying murderous aura around him. He looked nervous, and the terrifying murderous aura made it hard for him to breathe. The moment the array in the hall was activated, Zhou Xiaowei grabbed Mei Su, whose limbs were tied up, and quickly retreated out of the array's range. Mei Su's eyes were filled with joy when she saw Zhuowen. But soon, her joy was replaced by worry. She knew that there was a heaven-piercing array set up by Zhou Xiaowei in the hall. Although she knew that Zhuowen was also a heaven-piercing array master, it would take him a long time to break the array. By that time, Zhou Xiaowei would have gathered all the experts in Hongxian Divine City to encircle and kill Zhuowen. Zhou Xiaowei held Mei Su and stood outside the array. He looked at Zhuowen with a gloomy face and said, "Lord Zhua, didn't you leave the Massacre Heavenly Domain? Why are you here?" Zhuowen looked calm and said, "I just returned from the primitive Heavenly Domain." "Why?" "Zhou Xiaowei, don't you welcome me?" Zhou Xiaowei's eyes flickered. He laughed dryly and said, "If you are really Lord Zhua, I, Zhou Xiaowei, will naturally welcome you. After all, I am Lord Zhua's follower. But you're a fake." Everyone knew that once they left the Slaughter Heavenly Realm, it was basically impossible to come back. Lord Zhua has already left the Massacre Sky region. There's no way he can return. You must be the imposter that Ing Jie found, right? But unfortunately, if you want to deceive me, that's just wishful thinking. Zhou Xiaowei spoke very bluntly, as if he was certain that Zhuowen was an imposter. Zhou Xiaowei, you're twisting the truth. This isn't a fake, he's Master Zhua. Back then, Lord Zhua promoted you and imparted his knowledge of formations to you, allowing you to break through to the heavenly ascension level. Now that you see Lord Zhua again, is this how you slander him? Ing Jie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, pointed at Zhou Xiaowei and reprimanded him. However, Zhou Xiaowei sneered and said, "Bullshit, Zhuowen. Do you think that you can fool me by finding a fake? How laughable. Since you dare to come here and walk right into my trap, then all of you can die." As he spoke, Zhou Xiaowei formed a seal with both hands. Immediately, the killing formation in the main hall began to operate. In an instant, a terrifying killing energy burst out, forming a blood-red storm that blasted onto Zhuowen and Ing Jie. No! Meisu's beautiful eyes widened as she cried out in grief. However, Zhou Xiaowei laughed, a cruel laugh. But soon, Zhou Xiaowei felt that something was wrong. This was because he realized that the formation in front of him was trembling violently. Then, he saw that the formation in front of him was like broken glass, with cracks appearing on its surface. Crack! The formation shattered and was annihilated into nothingness. Then, Zhuowen walked out slowly with Ing Jie, looking very calm. Zhou Xiaowei, you've really matured. Your array, Dao, has improved a lot, but your brain hasn't, Zhuowen said calmly as he walked over. However, to Zhou Xiaowei's ears, it sounded like the whispers of the Grim Reaper. Zhou Xiaowei rushed out of the main hall with Meisu in his arms. "Guards, there's an enemy attack." Zhou Xiaowei shouted for help as he rushed out of the main hall, attracting the attention of many cultivators in Hongxian Divine City. Not good. Immortal Master Zhou is in danger. Let's go. Many cultivators in Hongxian Divine City took out their divine weapons and leaped towards Zhou Xiaowei in an attempt to protect him. Unfortunately, just as they moved, Zhou Xiaowei suddenly covered his head with both hands and let go of Meisu, who was being held hostage, with a blood-curdling scream. The moment Zhou Xiaowei let go of Meisu, a black-robed youth walked over slowly and caught Meisu. At the same time, the black-robed youth grabbed Zhou Xiaowei with his right hand. "It's so painful. Please let me go." Zhou Xiaowei screamed in pain as he covered his head with his hands. His spiritual soul was being destroyed by some kind of energy, and his spiritual soul had turned into a pile of mush. Zhuowen's gaze was calm. His soul was far more powerful than Zhou Xiaowei's. When Zhou Xiaowei was fleeing, he had used the power of his soul to condense an attack and blasted it into Zhou Xiaowei's soul, resulting in Zhou Xiaowei's current state. Of course, Zhuowen didn't use his spiritual soul sword intent. It was just an ordinary spiritual soul attack, which was very crude. The spiritual soul sword intent was too strong, and it was overkill to deal with Zhou Xiaowei. Moreover, even if he had used his spiritual soul sword intent, Zhou Xiaowei would have died on the spot, and he wouldn't have had the chance to struggle. "Thief! Let go of Immortal Master Zhou. How dare you hold Immortal Master Zhou hostage? You're courting death." At this moment, the cultivators of Hongxian God City had already rushed over. Their attacks landed on Zhuowen's body in a myriad of colors. Unfortunately, these attacks were all blocked by the creation mysterious light the moment they landed on Zhuowen's body. They couldn't hurt Zhuowen at all. Zhuowen casually sent out a palm, and an incomparably huge energy palm descended from the sky. The hundreds of experts at the front were instantly blown to smithereens. This attack completely stunned all the cultivators in Hongxian Divine City. They stood frozen on the spot as if they had been petrified. He had killed hundreds of cultivators with a single palm, and they were all third-step Dao validation experts. It was too terrifying to kill them just like that. "Is there anyone else who wants to die? I don't mind throwing out a few more palms." Zhuowen looked calm as he spoke leisurely. The crowd responded to Zhuowen by retreating collectively. They looked at Zhuowen in fear, and no one dared to step forward. "What a joke. He could easily kill hundreds of cultivators with a single palm. They were still weak, and they would be cannon fodder if they went forward. I'm Zhuowen from back then, and I've returned to the massacre celestial region. Qi Gaoming and Zhou Xiuwei were my followers back then, but they were very disobedient. They acted recklessly when I wasn't around, and they broke the balance of the massacre celestial region, causing many bloodshed. Today, I, Zhuowen, have returned to bring peace to the massacre celestial region. Now I, Zhuowen, want Hong Xian Divine City. Those who don't agree can leave Hong Xian Divine City. Those who agree, Hong Xian Divine City is also willing to accept you. Chapter 34:10. Uneasiness. It can't be. It's Zhuowen, the immortal Master Zhua. He's a ruthless man. He even killed the city lord of Dark Rock Divine City and forced the other two city lords to submit to him. He's a legend. Is that true? I remember that immortal Master Zhua left the Slaughter Heaven Domain through the Forbidden Death Mountain Range. The cry of the mountain soul was heard throughout the entire Slaughter Heaven Domain. How could he still be in the Slaughter Heaven Domain? Who cares? He's too ruthless and powerful. I don't think Qi Gaoming is a match for him. We'd better not provoke him. All the cultivators in Hong Xian Divine City were in a heated discussion. Most of them were suspicious of Zhuowen's identity. Most of them had only heard of Zhuowen's name and had never seen Zhuowen before. Therefore, they were suspicious of Zhuowen's identity. However, the terrifying strength that Zhuowen displayed earlier thoroughly convinced them. They did not care whether this person was the real Zhuowen or not. In any case, he was too powerful and was not in existence that they could casually offend. They only needed to know that. Although most of the cultivators in Hong Xian Divine City were in a heated discussion, no one left Hong Xian Divine City. Although Zhuowen seemed magnanimous, they didn't dare to disagree with Zhuowen. That would be openly going against this expert. The hundreds of cultivators who were killed by a single palm strike were the clearest examples. Zhuowen was satisfied with the reactions of most of the cultivators in Hong Xian Divine City. Then, his gaze fell on Zhou Xiuwei, who was in his hand. At this moment, Zhou Xiuwei's eyes had turned white and he was foaming at the mouth. He was delirious. His divine soul was a mess and his body was severely injured. He was in a half-dead state. Zhuowen didn't kill Zhou Xiuwei directly. Instead, he threw him to Ying Jie and let him imprison him. Then, he released the shackles on Mei Su. After the shackles on Mei Su's body were released, she threw herself into Zhuowen's arms and wept. Zhuowen felt a little awkward. Mei Su possessed the powerful nine-tailed fox bloodline. Not only was she talented, but she was also extremely beautiful, especially the women of the nine-tailed fox clan. Their figures were extremely beautiful and charming. When Mei Su threw herself into Zhuowen's arms, Zhuowen was almost affected. His breathing became a little hurried. Mei Su blushed when she felt Zhuowen's rapid breathing, but she didn't leave Zhuowen's embrace. She knew very well that the nine-tailed fox clan's ability to seduce people was extremely strong. Even if she didn't deliberately seduce people, her usual words and actions were mixed with an unusual charm. During this period of time, she had been living in fear. She often thought of Zhuowen and felt wronged. Now that she saw the person she had been thinking about day and night, the grievances in her heart suddenly exploded. Naturally, she could not help herself. Zhuowen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He could feel Mei Su's unusual attitude towards him, but he felt helpless. His heart already belonged to someone else. Naturally, he couldn't place any other feelings on Mei Su. Moreover, his feelings for Mei Su had always been that of an older brother to a younger sister. He had never thought about other feelings. Many cultivators in Hong Xian Divine City saw this scene and quickly turned their faces away. They didn't dare to look casually. They discussed animatedly. They seemed to understand why this expert had barged into Hong Xian Divine City to target Zhou Xiuwei. Some even lamented that even heroes had a weakness for the charms of a beautiful woman. Ying Jie hurriedly brought the delirious Zhou Xiuwei away from this place. He wanted to give Zhuowen and Mei Su some space. Zhuowen's five senses were far better than most cultivators. He naturally heard the crowd's discussion clearly. He also saw Ing Jie's actions. This made his face turn ugly and black lines appear on his forehead. What the hell was going on? Finally, after Mei Su calmed down, she left Zhuan's embrace with a red face. Big brother Zhua, I lost control of my emotions just now. I hope you don't mind. Mei Su stuttered as she spoke. She looked like a little girl. Zhuan sighed softly and said, It's okay. Mei Su, you're just like my younger sister. Why would I mind? When she heard Zhuan's words, Mei Su's face stiffened. However, she quickly returned to normal. However, her beautiful eyes were filled with gloominess. Mei Su, is your mother, Mei Ying, still imprisoned in Dark Rock Divine City? Zhuan saw Mei Su's strange expression and changed the topic. When Mei Su heard Mei Ying's name, her beautiful eyes turned red again. She sobbed and said, Big brother Zhua, you must save my mother. She was plotted against by Qi Gaoming and is now imprisoned in the dungeon of Dark Rock Divine City. After Mei Su saw Zhuan's strength, she knew that only Zhuan could save Mei Ying. Don't worry, Mei Ying is my friend. I will not sit by and do nothing. Zhuan's eyes were cold as he brought Mei Su into the city lord's mansion. Then, Mei Su began to arrange for her men to regain control of Hongxian Divine City. Most of Zhou Xiuwei's men in Hongxian Divine City had submitted to Mei Su under Zhuan's forceful methods. They did not dare to say a word against her. After dealing with the matters in Hongxian Divine City, Zhuan brought Mei Su and the delirious Zhou Xiuwei back to Dark Rock Divine City. As for the matters in Hongxian Divine City, he left it to Ing Jie to deal with. In the city lord's mansion of Dark Rock Divine City, Qi Gaoming was pacing back and forth in the hall with a gloomy expression. Since a while ago, he had been feeling depressed and had a bad premonition. Earlier, he had sent a message to Zhou Xiuwei. However, there had been no response for a long time. This had made the bad feeling in his heart even more intense. Normally, Zhou Xiuwei would reply to his message very quickly, especially after they had taken down Hongxian Divine City. Zhou Xiuwei had replied almost instantly. But now, there was no news from Zhou Xiuwei. Qi Gaoming suspected that something had happened to Zhou Xiuwei. It shouldn't be. The strongest person in Hongxian Divine City is Ing Jie. It's impossible for him to be a match for Immortal Master Zhou. However, Immortal Master Zhou has not replied to my message for so long. Could it be on purpose? The more Qi Gaoming paced back and forth, the more uneasy he became. Crisp footsteps could be heard from outside the hall. A subordinate rushed into the hall and knelt in front of Qi Gaoming. What's the matter? Qi Gaoming furrowed his brows and asked in an irritable tone. City Lord Qi, someone outside Dark Rock Divine City, said that he is looking for you. He said that he will give you 30 breaths of time. If you don't come out, your life will be in danger. The subordinate's voice was filled with anxiety. What? Who is so bold to provoke me? What is his name? Qi Gaoming was enraged when he heard that and questioned the subordinate. That person said that his name is Zhuan. The subordinate said in a low voice. Tongue. Chapter 34:11. Step on you, Zhuan? You said that the person who wants to see me outside the city is called Zhuan? Qi Gaoming stepped forward and grabbed his subordinate's shoulders tightly with both hands. His entire body was trembling with excitement. Of course, Qi Gaoming's excitement was not a display of joy. Instead, it was filled with surprise, and his breathing was even more chaotic. To Qi Gaoming, Zhuan was definitely a nightmare that he did not want to have. Originally, he thought that Zhuan would never return after leaving the Massacre Heavenly Region. But now he actually heard this name again. The fear in his heart for Zhuan once again welled up in his heart. City Lord, that person's name is indeed Zhuan. The subordinate grimaced in pain from Qi Gaoming's grip, and his words were a little disorderly. He did not understand why Qi Gaoming was so excited after hearing this name. All right, you may leave first. After the subordinate left, Qi Gaoming regained his calm, and his gaze immediately became incomparably gloomy. It should be someone with the same name. That Zhuan has only left the Massacre Heavenly Region not long ago. so it's impossible for him to return so quickly. Furthermore, it would be even more difficult for him to return to the massacre heavenly region from the outside world. Qi Gaoming muttered to himself. He was certain that the Zhuowen from the outside world was an imposter, and his expression became even uglier. If it's just an imposter, he actually dares to be so arrogant and ask me to leave in 30 breaths of time. He's got some guts. When I go out, I'll definitely break his legs. With that, Qi Gaoming walked towards the city gate of Dark Rock, Divine City. City Lord. When Qi Gaoming arrived at the city gate, the cultivators guarding the gate bowed respectfully to Qi Gaoming. Qi Gaoming nodded, and his gaze landed on the two figures outside the city gate. These two figures were a man and a woman. The moment Qi Gaoming saw the man, he immediately lost his calm, because this man actually looked exactly the same as Zhuowen. Or rather, it was Zhuowen. However, Qi Gaoming quickly calmed down. Like Zhou Xiuwei, he believed that the Zhuowen in front of him was an imposter. Your name is Zhuowen? Do you know who Zhuowen is? Qi Gaoming asked coldly. Zhuowen and Mei Su stood side by side. Hearing Qi Gaoming's question, Zhuowen's gaze suddenly became extremely strange. Before Zhuowen could answer, Qi Gaoming spoke again. He said coldly, Zhuowen is my master, and I am his follower. You pretended to be my master. Do you really think that I, Qi Gaoming, am easy to bully? Zhuowen's gaze became even stranger. He shook his head and said, Qi Gaoming, are you playing dumb in front of me? Since you still recognize me as your master, then get down here and apologize. Qi Gaoming looked up to the sky and laughed. He said sarcastically, You're just a fake. Although you look like my master, I know that you're definitely not my master, because master has already left the Slaughter Heaven domain. He is not in the Slaughter Heaven domain now. Can you use your brain when you're pretending? How dare you pretend to be my master when you don't even know such things? Zhuowen shook his head. He was really defeated by Qi Gaoming's ability to invert right and wrong. He really didn't want to continue arguing with Qi Gaoming. His patience had been exhausted. He picked up the half-dead Zhou Xiuwei from the macro world and threw him at Qi Gaoming. Qi Gaoming didn't react because the speed at which Zhou Xiuwei was thrown was too fast. His gaze was cold as he threw out a punch. The moment his fist hit Zhou Xiuwei, he heard a shrill scream. He knew that the person who was thrown was actually a person. Moreover, this person's scream was extremely familiar. Zhou Xiuwei's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his mind instantly became much clearer. He stared at Qi Gaoming and only had time to say you before he fell heavily to the ground. His breathing was weak, and he couldn't be more dead. Qi Gaoming was stunned. He didn't expect Zhou Xiuwei to be in Zhuowen's hands. No wonder Zhou Xiuwei didn't respond when he sent him a message. Looking at Zhou Xiuwei, who had died in his hands, Qi Gaoming's eyes instantly turned red. He felt that he had been played, and a sense of humiliation rose in his heart. You're courting death, Qi Gaoming roared. He took a step forward, jumped down the city wall, and attacked Zhuowen. What happened at the city gate had already attracted the attention of many cultivators in Dark Rock Divine City. Many figures floated in the sky above the Divine City, watching Qi Gaoming teach Zhuowen a lesson. This is the first time I've seen the City Lord so angry. This person really doesn't know what's good for him. He's going to suffer later. Not only will he suffer, I think he'll be beaten to death by the City Lord. Many cultivators in Dark Rock Divine City were watching the battle calmly. In their eyes, this was an unfair battle. Everyone had seen Qi Gaoming's strength with their own eyes. Ever since Mei Ying was defeated by Qi Gaoming, all the cultivators in the massacre heavenly domain subconsciously thought that Qi Gaoming was the strongest in the massacre heavenly domain. Now that a provocative fellow had come, they all subconsciously thought that this person was courting death. Zhuowen only raised his hand and easily caught Qi Gaoming's fist. Qi Gaoming struggled with all his might, but he found that he couldn't break free at all. He was shocked, and his eyes were filled with fear. He realized that he had underestimated the black-clothed youth in front of him. Qi Gaoming, when I gave you the divine pill to help you break through. I didn't let you invade other divine cities and fulfill your ambitions. I wanted you to be obedient and wait for me to come back. Now that I'm back, you actually question my identity and try to kill me. You're really good, even better than that Zhou Xiu Wei. Zhuan's tone gradually became heavier, and the strength in his hand also increased. Qi Gaoming's right fist immediately cracked. Qi Gaoming let out a blood-curdling scream and immediately cut off his right arm. Then, he quickly retreated. He was terrified. Looking at the black-clothed youth in front of him, he revealed a look of disbelief. He understood that the black-clothed youth in front of him was not pretending to be Zhuan, but Zhuan himself. However, Qi Gaoming felt that it was inconceivable. How could this Zhuan return so early? And how did he return? Can you retreat? As Qi Gaoming was retreating, Zhuan's voice also sounded like the call of the god of death. Following that, Qi Gaoming felt a terrifying force that was as vast as a mountain and impossible to resist acting on Qi Gaoming's body. Qi Gaoming let out a muffled groan and directly smashed face down onto the ground. And the place where Qi Gaoming landed just happened to be in front of Zhuan. Just as Qi Gaoming was about to struggle up, Zhuan unceremoniously stomped his right foot down. Chapter 34:12. The entire Dark Rock Divine City was terrifyingly quiet. All the cultivators felt as if they had been struck by lightning. They were stunned on the spot as they watched Zhuan stomp Qi Gaoming to the ground. From a moment Qi Gaoming made his move to being trampled under Zhuan's foot, it had only been one move. Qi Gaoming had actually been defeated so cleanly. Since when did City Lord Qi become so weak? He had defeated City Lord Meiying before. He could be said to be the strongest person in the Massacre Heavenly region. It's not that City Lord Qi is weak, but this guy called Zhuan is too strong. City Lord Qi, a mid-stage Tongtian master, was defeated in one move and stomped under his foot. This is definitely not something an ordinary person can do. This person must be a ruthless person who surpasses the mid-stage Tongtian master. You said he's called Zhuan? I've heard that there was an expert called Zhuan who killed the city lord of Dark Rock Divine City and subdued Qi Gaoming, Meiying, and other experts. However, he left the Massacre Heavenly region later. Could it be this person? The noise around them grew louder and louder. They began to guess Zhuan's identity. All of them kept quiet out of fear, and no one dared to help Qi Gaoming. Not to mention Zhuan's terrifying strength. Just Zhuan's legend in the Massacre Heavenly region was enough to make them lose the will to fight against him. Moreover, a late-stage Tongtian master like Qi Gaoming had been beaten so badly. How could they have the courage to go against a ruthless person like Zhuan? Qi Gaoming was very sullen. He shouted for the subordinates of Dark Rock Divine City to attack, but unfortunately, no one listened to him. Everyone was intimidated by Zhuan. Their feet felt as if they were filled with lead, and they didn't dare to step forward. Zhuan's right leg hooked, and Qi Gaoming involuntarily floated in the air. Soon after, Zhuan kicked out. Qi Gaoming's chest was fiercely kicked, and he spat out a mouthful of blood as he involuntarily flew out. Boom! Qi Gaoming slammed heavily into the wall, creating a human-shaped hole in the wall. His whole body was embedded in the wall. Lord Zhua, please spare my life. I know I was wrong. Please spare my life. Qi Gaoming's entire body trembled as he spat out these words with great difficulty. He was truly terrified. The Zhuan in front of him was too strong and too terrifying. He realized that Zhuan's strength was much stronger than before. In any case, he was at the middle stage of the Master of Heaven Ascension, but he could beat him half to death with a casual wave of his hand. Moreover, Qi Gaoming also knew that Zhuan had shown mercy. With Zhuan's strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to kill him completely. Since Zhuan had shown mercy, Qi Gaoming knew that Zhuan did not intend to kill him immediately. He still had a chance to survive, so he promptly begged for mercy. You don't have the right to beg me for mercy. I'll give you a chance now. Hand over Meiying, or die. Zhuowen's voice was cold and emotionless. Qi Gaoming nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that Zhuowen had not killed him, so he still had a chance to live. Of course, this was on the premise that he performed well enough. Lord Zhuo, I'll bring you to see Mei Ying. Qi Gaoming struggled out of the hole and fell to the ground in a sorry state, gasping for breath. Zhuowen walked in front of Qi Gaoming and lifted him up, saying, "Now, show me the way." Qi Gaoming's eyes were filled with humiliation, but he was helpless. He knew that Zhuowen was too strong for him to contend with, so he could only show Zhuowen the way. Countless cultivators in Dark Rock City stared blankly at the scene in front of them. They saw Zhuowen carrying Qi Gaoming and following him step by step into the depths of the city. No one could have imagined that Qi Gaoming, who is usually high and mighty, was being carried by someone with one hand at this moment, as if he was a dog. This scene was indeed a little strange. Qi Gaoming's heart was filled with humiliation and helplessness. Under Qi Gaoming's lead, Zhuowen easily entered the dungeon of Dark Rock City. The dungeon of Dark Rock City was very spacious. There were basically no prisoners in the cells, so it was gloomy and cold. Mei Ying was locked in a solitary cell in the deepest part of the dungeon. This cell was filled with dirty water. Mei Ying was tied to a rusty cross on the subway. Her shoulder blades were pierced, and the tendons in her arms and legs were cut. Blood flowed continuously from the cross. Her hair was disheveled, and her head hung low. Perhaps she heard footsteps, but her head only trembled slightly. She did not even raise her head. Her head was still hung low. "Mother!" Mei Su covered her cherry lips when she saw Mei Ying's miserable state. Her voice was filled with grief and indignation. Mei Ying heard Mei Su's voice, and her delicate body trembled. She finally raised her head. It was difficult for her to do so. Her face was covered in blood. However, from the outline of her face that was covered in blood, it was not difficult to see that her face was unparalleled when it was clean. "Su'er, why are you here? It's dangerous here. You shouldn't be here. Hurry up and leave," Mei Ying said agitatedly. Although Mei Ying was very agitated, her words were weak. It was obvious that she had suffered a lot in this dungeon. Zhuowen glanced coldly at Qi Gaoming, who had his head lowered, and said, "Good job." Then he walked forward and smashed the prison door, crushing the cross and the shackles on Mei Ying. Mei Ying screamed and fell. She was so weak that she did not even have the strength to support her body. However, a strong arm wrapped around her waist to prevent her from falling to the ground. Mei Ying forced herself to turn her head and struggled to break free from the arm. However, when she saw Zhuowen's face, she could not help but be stunned, forgetting to struggle. "Zhuowen, why are you here?" Mei Ying's eyes were filled with doubt. Was she hallucinating because of the torture? Zhuowen had left the Massacre Sky territory. How could he be here? "I have returned to the Massacre Sky territory." "Mei Ying, don't say anything. Swallow this elixir first." Zhuowen stopped Mei Ying, who was about to speak. He handed her a healing elixir and asked her to swallow it. Mei Ying trusted Zhuowen wholeheartedly. He swallowed the healing elixir without hesitation. A warm current flowed through Mei Ying's body. The originally weak Mei Ying was suddenly filled with energy, and she looked much better. Mei Ying, who had recovered some of her strength, only then did she realize that Zhuowen's arm was still around her slender waist. Her beautiful face could not help but blush slightly as she moved away from Zhuowen without a trace. Zhuowen noticed Mei Ying's actions and laughed dryly. He changed the topic and said, "Mei Ying, I have brought the culprit here. You can deal with Qi Gaoming." Zhuowen said to Mei Ying as he pointed at Qi Gaoming, who was lying on the ground behind him. At that moment, Mei Su threw herself into Mei Ying's arms. Her face was covered in tears. She sobbed and said, "Mother, I'm sorry that we were late. You have suffered so much." Mei Ying patted Mei Su's back and sighed. "Su'er, we have made you worry. Don't cry. Mother is fine now." Chapter 34:13. Asking for someone to lead the way at this moment. Qi Gaoming was trapped by Zhuowen's energy and was lying on the ground. He couldn't break free, let alone escape. City Lord Meiying, this is all a misunderstanding. It was Zhou Xiui's idea. It has nothing to do with me. Zhou Xiui has already been executed by me. City Lord Meiying, please be magnanimous and show me mercy. Qi Gaoming was terrified and his heart was about to jump out of his throat. He quickly begged for mercy without any shame. Meiying sneered in her heart and said indifferently, "No matter who came up with the idea, I only know that you are the one who has been torturing me all this time. I will only seek revenge from you." With that, Meiying's jade-like hand formed a sword and pointed at Qi Gaoming's forehead. Qi Gaoming screamed and his eyes glazed over. His divine soul was completely destroyed and he couldn't be more dead. After killing Qi Gaoming, Meiying turned around and knelt on one knee. She cupped her fists at Zhuowen and said, "Immortal Master Zhuowen, thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, Meiying, would have fallen here." Zhuowen helped Meiying up and said with a smile, "City Lord Meiying, you and I are friends. When a friend is in trouble, Zhuowen, will not sit idly by." Then, Mei Su told Meiying about her encounter with Zhuowen. This made Meiying furious. She originally thought that Qi Gaoming had only subdued Dark Rock Divine City. She didn't expect him to not let Hongxian Divine City go. If it wasn't for Zhuowen, Hongxian Divine City and Mei Su would have fallen. Thinking of this, Meiying felt a lingering fear and her gratitude towards Zhuowen grew even stronger. After that, Meiying displayed her strength as a strong woman. She reorganized the Dark Rock Divine City as fast as she could. Very soon, the originally chaotic Dark Rock Divine City was restored to order and peace under Meiying's control. After Dark Rock Divine City was completely reorganized, Meiying sent out an army to attack Quiet Sun Divine City. With Zhuowen's help, the Quiet Sun Divine City was like a chicken or a dog, easily breached. After completely subduing the Quiet Sun Divine City, Meiying sent trusted subordinates to guard the Quiet Sun Divine City and Dark Rock Divine City. Then, he followed Zhuowen back to Hongxian Divine City with Mei Su. In the main hall of Hongxian Divine City, Meiying, Mei Su, and Ying Jie were present. The three of them looked at Zhuowen in shock. Among them, Mei Su asked in disbelief, "Big Brother Zhuo, can you really help us leave the Massacre Heavens?" Everyone knew that the only way to leave the Massacre Heavenly Domain was to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain. Moreover, they also knew that the Forbidden Death Mountain range was very dangerous. Even if Meiying's cultivation base had broken through to the middle stage of the heaven-reaching master, he still wouldn't dare to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain range alone. She had originally planned to give it a try when she broke through to the late stage of the Heavenly Ascension realm. But now, she really didn't dare to do so. But now, Zhuowen said that he could bring them out of the Massacre Heavens. This really shocked them. However, when they thought about how Zhuowen had not only left the Massacre Heavens, but also returned from the outside world, they knew that Zhuowen wasn't lying. Moreover, with Zhuowen's strength, there was no need for him to lie. "If you trust me, I can bring you out of the Massacre Heavenly Domain. However, you must be trustworthy and there can't be too many of you. Go back and make arrangements. Remember, there can't be more than 10 people. If there are too many people, I won't be able to bring them." Zhuowen reminded them. The reason why Zhuowen said this was not because he didn't have the ability to bring more people into the Forbidden Death Mountain, but because he wasn't optimistic about the teleportation array that he had set up temporarily. The teleportation array couldn't transport too many people. After receiving Zhuowen's reminder, Meiying, Ying Jie, and the rest went back to make arrangements. 3 days later, at the city gate of Hongxian Divine City, Meiying, Mei Su, and Ying Jie had gathered. Besides them, there were 5 people that Zhuowen didn't recognize. The 5 of them were quite young. Judging from their auras, they shouldn't be from the human tribe, but from the foreign tribes of the primitive heavens domain. "Celestial Master Zhuo, everything is ready. Are we going to enter the Forbidden Death Mountain?" Meiying asked for Zhuowen's opinion. The 5 people behind Meiying were all excited. They looked at Zhuowen's back and whispered to each other. Although the 5 of them didn't speak loudly, Zhuowen's five senses were too strong, and he heard their conversation. He's Celestial Master Zhua. He's so young, and he's quite handsome. He's actually able to stir up the entire massacre heavenly domain. He's a real, demonic figure. I'm willing to be his cultivation partner. A beautiful female foreign tribe member said in a love-struck manner. Don't even think about it. Celestial Master Zhua won't fall for a common woman like you. If you want to be his cultivation partner, you should at least be as pretty as Miss Mei Su. You're still far from that. Another male foreign tribe member snorted. Zhuowen was speechless. He didn't continue to listen and blocked his divine perception. Just follow me. Once we reach the Forbidden Death Mountain, someone will come to pick us up. Zhuowen nodded and mounted the tall dragon horse. When the rest of the people saw Zhuowen's actions, they all mounted their own dragon horses. Let's go. Zhuowen spoke. Immediately, the group shot out like an arrow that had left a bow, leaving behind a trail of dust. The dragon horses were very fast. In just a day, they were already close to the Forbidden Death Mountain. Zhuowen brought everyone to the foot of a mountain in the Forbidden Death Mountain range and stopped. This was the exit that Zhuowen had used to leave the Forbidden Death Mountain under Shi's instructions. Naturally, they could enter the Forbidden Death Mountain from here. Zhuowen took out his communication jade charm and sent a message to Shi. If he didn't come, he would have to bear the consequences. When Shi received Zhuowen's message, he cursed in his heart. However, there was nothing he could do. He was really afraid of this human. If he didn't go out to pick them up, this human would attack his nest, and he would be finished. Thinking of this, Shi sighed helplessly and left his nest. He went to the place that Zhuowen had instructed him to pick up Zhuowen. At the foot of the mountain, Mei Ying was curious about Zhuowen who was waiting for them. He asked curiously, Celestial Master Zhua, are we going up directly? Why are we waiting here? The Forbidden Death Mountain's terrain is very complicated. Even I would get lost easily. That's why I invited a strange beast from the Forbidden Death Mountain to guide us. Zhuowen said flatly. What? A strange beast from the Forbidden Death Mountain? I heard that the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain are extremely terrifying. It is said that there are even some strange beasts at the level of the Master of Heaven. Celestial Master Zhua, you can actually make the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain listen to you? Mei Ying's beautiful eyes narrowed as he found it unbelievable. The rest of the people were also surprised. They had all heard of the legend of the Forbidden Death Mountain and knew that the strange beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain were the most difficult to deal with. Chapter 34:14. Giving away. Although everyone was in disbelief, no one dared to question him. Zhuowen was too powerful and ruthless. They did not dare to question such an expert. Zhuowen saw the doubt in everyone's eyes, but he did not point it out. Instead, he waited silently. He believed that Shi would not ignore his message. After all, the strength that he had displayed before was too strong. Shi would not offend him because of this. Sure enough, not long after, the thick black fog at the foot of the mountain dissipated and a figure landed at the foot of the mountain. Mei Ying and the others were waiting in boredom. When the black fog dissipated, they immediately became vigilant. They looked solemnly at the figure that came out of the Forbidden Death Mountain range. The figure had a tiger's head and a human's body. Its aura was vast and boundless like the ocean. Mei Ying's beautiful eyes narrowed the moment she saw the tiger-headed man. She said in a low voice, "It's an exotic beast at the middle stage of the sky-reaching master realm. It's very powerful." Mei Su, Ying Jie, and the 5 juniors became nervous when they heard Mei Ying's words. They had lived in the massacre heavenly domain for a long time and had heard a lot about the Forbidden Death Mountain range. They knew that the exotic beasts in the Forbidden Death Mountain range were much stronger than those of the same rank. Cultivators of the same rank would usually be defeated if they fought against the exotic beasts. Although the tiger-headed exotic beast had the same cultivation level as Mei Ying, everyone knew that Mei Ying would not be a match for the exotic beast. However, Mei Ying and the others were less nervous when they saw Zhuowen. They thought of Zhuowen's strength and knew that the tiger-headed exotic beast might not be a match for Zhuowen. They had originally thought that there would be a great battle. Who would have thought that the tiger-faced, human-bodied beast with a grand aura would walk in front of Zhuo, kneel on one knee, and say respectfully, "Greetings, Lord." Mei Ying, Mei Su, and the others couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. This strange beast with a tiger's face and a human's body was at least at the mid-stage of the Heaven Ascension realm. Yet, it was actually kneeling in front of Zhuo to express its submission. Celestial Master Zhuo, don't tell me that the person you mentioned earlier is this strange beast? Mei Ying regained his senses and asked, "Who are you calling an exotic beast? Human, you better watch your words. Otherwise, don't blame me for tearing your mouth apart." Shirt, who looked at Mei Ying with hostility. Don't look at how respectful and obedient Shirt, who was towards Zhuo. That was because Zhuo's strength was too strong, suppressing him to the point that he did not dare to act recklessly. However, Mei Ying was not Zhuo, and he was not that powerful. With Shihu's personality, he would not be nice to Mei Ying and the others. "They're all my friends. Watch your words," Zhuo said faintly. Shirt, who trembled when he heard that. He could hear a trace of killing intent in Zhuo's words. Shihu quickly forced a smile and said, "Sir, you worry too much. I was just joking with them just now." Zhuo nodded and said without batting an eyelid, "I need to bring my friend into the Forbidden Mountain Range, which is the place all of you found me at that time. Bring me there now, and this divine pill is yours." Zhuo took out a spirit-cleansing divine pill and waved it in front of Shihu. Then he kept it in the macro world. Shihu's eyes widened the moment he saw the spirit-cleansing divine pill. He was no stranger to the spirit-cleansing divine pill. Not only could it increase the probability of an early-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Master breaking through to the mid-stage, but it also had unimaginable benefits for the mid-stage Heaven Ascension Realm Master. A divine pill of this level was too precious. It could be said that it was hard to find even one. Now, the human cultivator in front of him casually took it out. This made Shihu view Zhuo even more highly. Of course, he was also even more apprehensive of Zhuo in his heart. He was very clear that the resources on this person were so abundant. His strength was so formidable. He definitely had an extremely robust background behind him. When Shihu saw Zhuo put away the spirit-cleansing divine pill, his gaze was slightly disappointed. But he came back to his senses very quickly and said with a face full of eagerness, "Your Excellency, this lowly one will definitely do it well for you. You can rest assured." Zhuo nodded and said, "Then lead the way in front." Shihu had a look of eagerness as he led Zhuo's party into the stone steps that went up at the foot of the mountain. These stone steps presented a verdant color, sparkling and translucent, like jade, emitting a light that was hard to look at. The moment Zhuo stepped onto the stone steps, he had already entered the range of the Forbidden Death Mountain. Dense and powerful sword chi surged toward Zhuo, drilling into his acupoints in an attempt to pierce through Zhuo. Zhuo was not surprised. This was not the first time he had stepped onto these stone steps. Coupled with his strong physical body, these sword chi really could not cause any harm to him. However, Zhuo frowned slightly. The moment he saw Mei Ying and the others step onto the stone steps, they all exclaimed in surprise. Mei Ying and Ying Jie were still fine. Their cultivation was the strongest among them, so naturally, they could withstand the sword chi around them. On the other hand, Mei Su and the other 5 juniors had the lowest cultivation. The moment they encountered the sword chi, they were immediately thrown into disarray and suffered serious injuries. Zhuo waved his sleeve and used the profound creation mysterious light. A blazing white light spread out with Zhuo as the center. Instantly, with Zhuo as the center, the white light formed a solid boundary that enveloped Mei Su and the others within a 10-meter radius. As soon as the boundary appeared, the terrifying sword chi around them was immediately blocked outside. "Thank you, Brother Zhuo." Mei Su and the others steadied themselves. Naturally, they also noticed the boundary that suddenly appeared around them. They quickly cupped their hands and thanked Zhuo. Shihu, who was leading the way in front, also stopped. He looked at the boundary around them and looked at Zhuo with even more respect. He could feel that the boundary that Zhuowen had just cast was very powerful. He even doubted if he could break it if he attacked with all his might. Then, the group continued on their way. Soon, Shurhu led the group to the area where Zhuowen had just teleported into the forbidden Death Mountain range. As soon as Zhuowen entered the area, he waved his right hand and summoned several beast bone array discs. He began to deduce the original teleportation trajectory. This time, he quickly found the original teleportation trajectory. After all, he had just entered the Massacre Heavenly Domain not long ago, so it was naturally easy to find the teleportation trajectory. After finding the teleportation trajectory, Zhuowen began to set up the teleportation array. About an hour later, Zhuowen finished setting up the teleportation array. After he threw a few thousand Heavenly Law origin crystals into the teleportation array, it immediately emitted a blazing white light. Within the teleportation array, there was even a powerful spatial fluctuation. Zhuowen looked at Mei Ying and the others and said, "City Lord Mei Ying, Miss Mei Su, the teleportation array is ready. You can all enter now." Chapter 34:15. Mysterious Image Lake, Big Brother Zhua. Why aren't you entering the teleportation array? After entering the teleportation array, Mei Su saw that Zhuowen hadn't moved and hurriedly asked. As soon as Mei Su said that, Mei Ying, Ying Jie, and the rest came to their senses and looked at Zhuowen in confusion. Zhuowen cupped his hands and said in a deep voice, "Everyone, I'm afraid I can't follow you to the primitive heavenly realm." "Why? Big Brother Zhua, you're also from the primitive heavenly realm. Why don't you follow us?" Mei Su asked in confusion. "Immortal Master Zhua, do you want to stay in the slaughter heavenly realm? This place isn't suitable for you. If you follow us to the primitive heavenly realm, I'll use the nine-tailed fox clan's power to repay your kindness." Mei Ying said. Zhuowen shook his head and said, "The primitive heavenly realm isn't my hometown. My real identity isn't from the Devouring Clan. The Devouring Clan is just a clone of mine. My real body is a human, so I can't follow you." Zhuowen cupped his hands and said, "Everyone, if there's a chance in the future, we'll meet again. Let's part ways here." Zhuowen threw out a formation flag, and the teleportation array emitted a blazing white light that engulfed everyone. Zhuowen watched as the white light gradually disappeared. Then he turned around and looked at Shurhu, who was still following behind him. He tossed a grand peace spirit divine pill to Shurhu. "Thank you, my lord." Shurhu's eyes widened when he received the spirit cleansing divine pill. He thanked Zhuowen again and was extremely excited. "Shurhu, I heard that the Forbidden Mountain Range is the only way out of the slaughter heavenly realm. However, I've tried this place before, and I only know that it leads to the primitive heavenly realm. Is there no other way out?" Zhuowen asked indifferently. Shurhu carefully put away the spirit cleansing divine pill and looked at Zhuowen. After knowing that Zhuowen was a human, he already knew why Zhuowen asked that question. He grinned and said, "Sir, you may not know this, but the Forbidden Death Mountain is not the only way to leave the slaughter heavenly realm. Your guess is right. The Forbidden Death Mountain is an exit that leads to the great desolate heaven realm. I know you are a human, and the place you want to return to should be the Xian Mi heavenly domain. And the other place I want to tell you is the entrance to the mysterious passageway that leads to the Xian Mi heavenly domain." Hearing this, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He knew that there was more than one exit in a Massacre heavenly domain. He had learned about the slaughter heavenly domain from the Black King. He knew that this heavenly domain was a very mysterious and strange heavenly domain between the great desolate heavenly domain and the Xianmi heavenly domain. Since there was an exit to the great desolate heavenly domain, there must be an exit to the Xianmi heavenly domain. When Zhuowen saw the hesitation on Shurhu's face, he knew that this fellow wanted some benefits. Zhuowen took out a grand peace spirit divine pill again and said indifferently, "Tell me, and this divine pill is yours." When Shurhu saw that Zhuowen actually took out another grand peace spirit divine pill, his eyes immediately revealed a look of surprise. At the same time, he was shocked by Zhuan's wealth to be able to take out so many divine pills so casually. In the opposite direction of the Forbidden Death Mountain, it can be considered another border of the Massacre Heavenly Domain. There's a vast and boundless lake. We call it the Mystic Image Lake. The reason why this lake has such a name is entirely because cultivators who enter the Mystic Image Lake will encounter a mirror image human figure that is exactly the same as him. This is the strange part of the Mystic Image Lake. It can completely replicate all the abilities and divine artifacts of the cultivators who enter the Mystic Image Lake. And the replicated mirror image human figure strength is even stronger than the original. In the Massacre Heavenly Domain, the gathering place of the Quiet Sun Divine City is basically filled with human cultivators. Many of them choose to barge into the Mystic Image Lake in order to leave this place, hoping to return to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. However, these human cultivators who barged into the Mystic Image Lake were all annihilated and died in the Mystic Image Lake. That place is even more terrifying than the Forbidden Death Mountain. No matter how strong you are, the Mystic Image Lake will create a mirror image human figure that is even stronger than you. The final result of barging in is death. At this point, Shurhu looked at Zhuan and advised Zhuan not to rashly attempt to enter the Mystic Image Lake. He had also received a lot of benefits from Zhuan and had a good impression of Zhuan. Although he knew that Zhuan was very strong, wanting to pass through the Mystic Image Lake was not something that could be done with just strength. That place was an unsolvable place. Zhuan nodded. Although Shurhu advised that place was not a good place, Zhuan was unmoved. He had to return to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. Not only did he have to find Mu Qinshue's whereabouts, but his Ryuka family was still in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. All these years, he had been running around in the outside world and rarely returned to Ryuka. He did not even know how his Ryuka family members were doing. This time in the primitive heavenly domain, Zhuan's strength had increased greatly. Furthermore, the great world was extremely hidden. He decided that after returning to the Xianmi heavenly domain, he would bring the Ryuka family to live in the great world. With the resources and foundation in the great world, he would definitely be able to build the Ryuka family into an extremely powerful force. After all, his foundation had far surpassed all the other powerful forces. Even the sorcerer tribe, the number one tribe in the primitive heavenly domain, could not compare to Zhuan's current foundation. In addition, he was a powerful array master and alchemist. As long as he was still around, the Ryuka family would only become more prosperous. In the end, Zhuan obtained a route to the mysterious image lake from Shurhu and left the Forbidden Death Mountain range. Shurhu looked at Zhuan's departing figure and shook his head. He sighed softly and said, "This lord is really stubborn. The mysterious image lake is simply unsolvable, but he still wants to go. I really don't know what he is thinking." However, when he thought about how he had obtained 2 Grand Harmony Spirit Elixirs for no reason, his expression immediately became much more cheerful. This time, he had gotten a huge bargain. If he completely refined the Grand Harmony Spirit Elixir, his cultivation would improve greatly again. Zhuan's speed was very fast. He rode the space-time roulette and advanced rapidly. In just 2 days, he had crossed the entire Massacre Heavenly Domain and arrived at the other border of the Massacre Heavenly Domain that Shurhu had mentioned. The Massacre Heavenly Domain was much smaller than the primitive Heavenly Domain and the Xianmi Heavenly Domain. Therefore, he did not need to spend much time to cross the entire Massacre Heavenly Domain. Zhuan stopped the space-time roulette. At the same time, he also saw at the end ahead. An incomparably huge lake with clear and crystalline waves appear before his eyes. The shape of this lake was oval-shaped. The surface of the lake flickered with a cold light, sparkling and shining. It was very extraordinary. Zhuan stopped at the shore of the lake. Looking at the clear and crystalline lake water under his feet, his brows furrowed. This lake was no different from an ordinary lake. He did not even feel the fluctuations of an array formation in the surroundings. If not for Shurhu's reminder, he would have suspected whether this lake was the mysterious image lake or not. But very soon, Zhuowen revealed a look of surprise. He looked at the figure in the lake that reflected his reflection. That figure was also looking at him. Zhuowen discovered that the pair of eyes of the figure in the lake was actually a faint blue. It was completely different from his black pupils. Chapter 34:16. Mirror Image Shadow Splash. The sharp sound of water suddenly rang out, and the figure reflected in the water was grinning maliciously at Zhuowen. And without any warning, he attacked swiftly and violently. An arm quickly reached out of the water and grabbed Zhuowen's feet, intending to pull Zhuowen into the lake. Zhuowen's reaction was very fast. The moment the figure attacked, he had already retreated. What surprised Zhuowen was that the moment he retreated, he couldn't see his own figure. The arm that reached out of the water also collapsed. The surface of the lake was still tranquil. The waves were clear and crystalline, flickering with a lustrous light. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He stopped in his tracks and didn't look too good. The next few times, Zhuowen tried to walk to the shore of the lake. Every time, his figure would be reflected in the lake, and every time, the figure in the lake would reveal a sinister smile and decisively attack Zhuowen. One time, Zhuowen's reaction was slower, and his right foot was immediately grabbed by the figure in the lake. The figure was very strong, and Zhuowen was almost dragged into the water. Fortunately, Zhuowen used the power of time and space in time to escape the range of the lake. Zhuowen stood quite far away from the shore of the lake and looked pensive. After a few attempts, Zhuowen finally figured out the pattern of the mystic image lake. As long as a person's figure was reflected on the surface of the water, the mysterious image lake would produce a mirror image of a person. As for this mirrored figure, its strength was even more extraordinary. It was even stronger than the original. He could guess a thing or two from the fact that he was almost dragged into the lake by the figure in the water. According to Hu, if he wanted to pass through the mystic image lake, he had to defeat the mirror image produced by the mystic image lake. His clone cultivated the Pangu's sacred body and was the strongest. However, in the mystic image lake, the mirror image produced would probably be stronger than his clone. Zhuowen didn't plan to let his clone fight. At the thought of this, he summoned his true body of the human race from the great world. The white robes of the true body of the human race fluttered along with the wind. His face carried a scholarly smile. Furthermore, his cultivation base had also made significant progress. Ever since he had broken through to the heavenly master realm, coupled with the abundant resources of the outside world, his cultivation base had reached the peak of the early heavenly master realm. He wasn't far from the middle stage of the master of heaven realm. Although the cultivation of his true body might not be particularly high, his human true body had successfully attained the Tao with a body without a Tao root. It could be said that this was unprecedented. Correspondingly, the main body's battle prowess was absolutely astonishing, far surpassing those of the same level. It could fight against a mid-stage Heaven's Ascension Master, and there was even a high chance that it could defeat a mid-stage Heaven's Ascension Master. For the battle at the Mystic Image Lake this time, it was most appropriate to send his true body to try it out. Once the main body was no match for the main body, the clone could forcefully intervene and swiftly rescue the main body. This also meant that there was an additional layer of protection. The main body of the human race nodded to the clone, then walked step by step toward the Mystic Image Lake. The instant he reached the shore, he suddenly stomped his right foot and instantly leaped into the air, landing in the center of the lake. The clone sat cross-legged on the shore and looked at the main body floating in the air above the lake. Then, he looked at the surface of the water at the center of the lake. The main body's figure appeared there. The figure's eyes were still dark blue, and there was a strange smile on his face. Splash! Suddenly, the figure broke out of the water and let out a beast-like roar. He quickly swept toward the main body in the air above the center of the lake. A terrifying force swept out, and countless splashes of water splashed in all directions, forming pillars of water one after another in the air. These pillars of water shot straight into the sky like water dragons. Countless splashes of water scattered in all directions, forming a hazy mist above the water. The main body snorted coldly, and a pair of huge illusory eyes appeared behind him. It was the torch dragon's eye that he had used. The torch dragon's eye was very mysterious, and its pupils emitted a faint light as if it could see through everything and illusions. The main body took a strange step in midair, and then his eyes flickered. He stomped his right foot, and a terrifying force shook the ground as he stomped toward one of the water pillars below. Bang! 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 Zhuowen's leg strength was terrifying, and it carried the terrifying power of the heavenly Tao. The water pillar directly exploded, splashing out dazzling water. Bang! At the same time, a figure suddenly rushed out from the exploding water pillar and punched the back of the main body. The fist force was like a rainbow, and it was terrifying as if it could split the sky and earth. The main body was already prepared. He turned around and suddenly flicked his right leg. Endless astral winds swept out with his right leg, and it was very terrifying. Bang! The fist and leg collided, and endless ripples exploded. The main body and the figure suddenly separated, and the two of them let out a muffled groan at the same time. Zhuowen stabilized his body and began to carefully size up the mirror figure opposite him. The figure was almost the same height as him. The only thing he didn't understand was that the figure's entire body was pitch black, and his facial features couldn't be seen. It was as if the figure in front of him was a shadow. Whoosh! The figure stomped his foot and launched another attack. The main body didn't show any weakness and also flew out. Suddenly, the two of them fought again, and the terrifying ripples of the battle spread out in all directions like mist. The battle between the two of them was very terrifying. The space above the lake was crisscrossed and collapsed, and pillars of water flew out from the lake one after another, straight into the sky like water dragons. It was very spectacular. The doppelganger, sitting cross-legged on the shore, looked more and more serious. He found that the main body was gradually suppressed by the figure. The attack methods of the two were almost identical. There was no difference, but the figure's strength was much stronger than the main body. This can't go on. The main body will lose without a doubt. I have to pull the main body back first. The doppelganger muttered to himself and began to communicate with the main body, telling him to go to the shore first. The doppelganger quickly took action and pulled him out of the range of the mysterious image lake. However, the doppelganger didn't get a response from the main body. His expression gradually became strange because he found that in the process of the main body's continuous battle with the mirror figure, the main body's eyes revealed a look of enlightenment. Seeing the look of enlightenment in the main body's eyes, the doppelganger, who originally wanted to persuade the main body to come back, stopped. He knew the main body's situation. The main body's cultivation was already at the peak of the early stage of the Heaven Ascension Master, and it was only half a step away from the middle stage. Originally, with the powerful foundation of the Great World, it was not impossible to forcefully use resources to promote the main body in a short period of time, but there would be corresponding side effects, so the main body naturally didn't choose this method. The main body was looking for some kind of opportunity, an opportunity to comprehend. He was very clear that as long as he could find this opportunity, then a breakthrough would be a matter of course. Chapter 34:17. Meeting the Black King again. Although the original body was constantly being suppressed by the mirror image, he was not defeated. Instead, the original body's eyes were becoming more and more enlightened. Following that, the original body's aura changed. The original body's aura was also becoming stronger, as if it would break through at any time. Bang! The original body was pushed back again. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his face was slightly pale. However, the original body's lips were curled up. He was smiling, and the curvature of his lips was getting wider and wider. His eyes became extremely clear, and they were filled with a strong fighting spirit. Once again, he fought with the mirror image. This time, the original body was no longer at a disadvantage. Instead, the more he fought, the braver he became. The aura on his body also became more and more violent and powerful. Boom! The original body suddenly threw out a punch. Instantly, terrifying lightning exploded, and an ear-piercing explosion sounded. As for the power of this punch, it was fully unleashed. It had actually reached an unprecedentedly terrifying level. The mirror image was like a machine that did not know fear. He also threw out a punch, intending to meet the original body head-on. With a crisp cracking sound, the mirror image's right fist was shattered. Blood splattered everywhere, and he was in a miserable state. He kept retreating. The original body's aura became more and more vast. The energy on his body kept rising, forming a terrifying and complicated energy storm above his head. At the same time, the original body's power also rose to a terrifying level. The original body took a step forward and caught up with the mirror image. He threw out a punch, and it landed heavily on the mirror image's chest. The mirror image's chest was directly smashed. Blood burst out, and his sternum caved in. He looked extremely miserable. The original body did not let the mirror image go so easily. He threw out punch after punch, and the power of each punch was extremely terrifying. It could shatter any physical body, and it was so terrifying that it could destroy the heavens and earth. The original body finally threw out a punch, and it landed on the mirror image's back. Then, the mirror image screamed and exploded into nothingness. At this moment, the original body's aura had reached its peak. His body emitted crackling sounds, as if many beings were colliding with each other. Finally, his aura was elevated to a higher level, and the energy in his body was constantly being reorganized and transformed. He was in high spirits. The clone that was seated on the shore slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the main body that was still floating in the air above the mysterious image lake and muttered to himself, "I never imagined that the main body would actually make a breakthrough in the middle of the battle." The battle at the mysterious image lake this time has truly benefited the main body quite a bit. But soon, the Avatar's gaze was attracted to the center of the mysterious image lake. At the center of the profound image lake, a violently rotating vortex actually appeared. This whirlpool was very big, and it was pitch black inside. It was incomparably deep, and it was impossible to see what was in the depths. However, his main body, which was hovering above the lake, saw the depths of the vortex through the torch dragon's eye. In the depths, he saw the exit to the massacre heavenly domain. He knew that if he won the battle of the mystic image lake this time, he would also win the right to leave the slaughter sky domain. Speaking of which, he should be the first cultivator to pass through the profound image lake in the slaughter heavenly domain. After all, Sherwood had said that no human cultivator had successfully passed the test of the mystic image lake. The clone on the shore stood up and took a step forward to the main body's side. He looked down at the black vortex below and said to the main body, "Main body, it's been hard on you this time. Enter the great world first. Leave the rest to me." The main body nodded. He had just broken through and urgently needed to consolidate his newly advanced realm. After the main body entered the great world, the clone hesitated for a moment before rushing into the vortex below. The moment he entered the vortex, Zhuan's vision fell into darkness. However, by using his divine thought, he was able to see the inside of the whirlpool clearly. What made Zhuan feel strange was that the vortex stirred up the lake so violently, but the inside of the vortex was very quiet. Moreover, through his divine thought, Zhuan discovered that there was actually a staircase inside the vortex. This staircase was forged from bluestone. The surface was smooth and exquisite like jade. Zhuan continued to walk down the staircase. As he went down, Zhuan saw many corpses. They must be the corpses of cultivators who had failed the test and died in the profound image lake. After about half a day, Zhuan walked out of the staircase and came to a dark secret room. In front of the secret room, there was a bronze tree. Zhuan was very familiar with this bronze tree. When he had entered the mysterious passage, he had walked along the light and darkness path. At the end of the light and darkness path was a bronze tree. At that time, He had relied on the bronze tree's teleportation power to finally teleport him into the slaughter heavenly domain. This bronze tree was exactly the same as the one Zhuowen had seen last time. In the middle of the tree was a palm-sized blood pattern. The blood pattern was very complicated and gave off the smell of blood. Under the blood pattern, there were 3 grooves. Zhuowen knew that these grooves were for heavenly Tao origin crystals. Zhuowen straightforwardly took out 3 supreme-grade heavenly Tao origin crystals and placed them in the grooves. Suddenly, the blood pattern on the bronze tree spun rapidly and emitted an intense bloody light. The bloody light spread and formed a bloody vortex that sucked Zhuowen in. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, he was standing under another bronze tree, and in front of him was a very familiar path of light and darkness. Below the light and darkness path was a winding river of light and darkness. Looking at the river of light and darkness below, Zhuowen was so angry that his teeth itched. When he had first entered the slaughter heavenly domain, he had questioned the Phoenix people's saintess. Later, he had found out that the river of light and darkness led directly to the prehistoric heavenly domain. And this light and darkness path led to the Xian Mi heavenly domain. Back then, the Black King had deliberately misled him. If he had directly entered the river of light and darkness, he would not have had to go through so much trouble to enter the slaughter heavenly domain and then enter the prehistoric heavenly domain through the forbidden Death Mountain range. Who knew how much effort and time had been spent? Sigh. I hope that the Black King is more reliable this time. Zhuowen shook his head and sighed. He stepped onto the light and darkness path and rushed towards the source of the light and darkness path. When Zhuowen arrived at the source of the light and darkness path, he saw a huge black lion that was as big as a mountain. Black King. When Zhuowen saw the black lion, his expression did not look too good. It was even unfriendly. The black lion also saw Zhuowen. It smiled cheekily and said, "Oh, it's Zhuowen. What a coincidence to meet you here. You're really lucky to be able to come out after entering the slaughter heavenly domain again. What a surprise, and also made me lose a little miserably." When the black lion said this, its face was full of resentment. Zhuowen felt a chill run down his spine. Lose? Who did you bet with? Zhuowen caught the loophole in the Black King's words and asked. The Black King patted his head and said, "It's just a bet with a friend of mine. I bet that you would die in the slaughter heavenly domain and would not last for 49 days. My friend bet that you would come out alive. I think you know the final result." Zhuowen's eyes emitted a green light as he looked at the Black King unkindly. This guy actually used him as a wager. Zhuowen was very unhappy. However, although he was unhappy, the Black King was very powerful. The aura on his body made even Zhuowen tremble with fear. Chapter 34:18. The death of Tan, Xinghua the Black King was embarrassed. He looked at Zhuowen's unfriendly gaze and laughed dryly. "I wasn't the one who suggested this bet. It was my friend who pestered me to make the bet. What can I do?" Zhuowen looked at the Black King suspiciously and asked, "Who is your friend?" Zhuowen Kai would not listen to Black King's nonsense. He knew very well that Black King loved to bet. This bet must have been proposed by this fellow first. However, this fellow had lost and pushed all the blame to his scapegoat friend. The Black King shrugged and said, "I won't tell that old guy. He asked me to keep it a secret. I won't tell you." Zhuowen didn't care. He could guess that the so-called friend who bet with the Black King should be the 3 pure ones. Zhuowen said calmly, "Now don't block the way. I need to leave this place. Send me back to the Xian Mi heavenly territory. Do you think I want to wait for you? I'm here to send you a message. The 3 pure ones want you to go to the heaven accessing place as soon as possible. He wants me to send you to the starry sky battlefield. You've caused a lot of trouble in the untainted heavenly territory. Fortunately, most people think you died together with the weird green-haired mummy. You're safe now. However, if you go back to the Xianmi heavenly territory and appear in front of everyone, your former enemies will easily pass the news of you to the Wu Lu and other forces in the heaven accessing place." The Black King's eyes became serious. He warned Zhuowen to be careful when he went back to the Xian-Mi heavenly territory. Many practitioners in the Xian-Mi heavenly territory knew that Zhuowen had used the alias of Long One. If he appeared in the Xian-Mi heavenly territory as Zhuowen, it would be easy to arouse suspicion. Then someone would definitely leak the secret. Hearing this, Zhuowen fell silent. He felt a chill in his heart. He really didn't think of this. Now that the Black King reminded him, he broke out in a cold sweat. Seeing Zhuowen's frightened expression, the Black King looked a little proud and said, "It seems that you didn't think of this. Fortunately, I told you in advance. How are you going to thank me?" Zhuowen furrowed his brows. He did not care about the Black King's irritating expression. Instead, he began to think about how he would continue to disguise himself after returning to the Xian-Mi heaven domain. Furthermore, he could no longer use the names Long One and Zhuowen. "Black King, thank you so much. Teleport me to the Xian-Mi heavenly domain," Zhuowen said solemnly. "Brat, are you even listening to me? Don't you want to go to the heaven accessing place to meet the old guys, 3 pure ones? You should know that you destroyed the Sorcerer God City and killed many experts of the Sorcerer tribe. You even killed the Sorcerer tribe's Saint Master. Once the Wu Lun knows that you are fine, most of the forces in the primitive heavenly realm in the heaven accessing place will put you on the wanted list. At that time, you'll be really miserable. It will be difficult for the 3 pure ones to protect you, and the rest of the ancestral sorcerers' corpses are basically in the heaven accessing place. It's useless for you to wander around the Xian-Mi heavenly domain and the untainted heavenly domain now." The Black King stared at him. He was still trying to persuade Zhuowen, hoping that Zhuowen would change his mind. "I still have some things to do in the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. After I finish these things, I will naturally go to the heaven accessing place," Zhuowen said solemnly. Seeing that Zhuowen was so determined, the Black King did not try to persuade him again. He said, "Since you have made up your mind, I will not force you. Anyway, I have already delivered your message. Next, I will teleport you out first. It's still the starry sky battlefield. You are free to go wherever you want." As he spoke, the Black King waved his claw. A stream of black energy gushed out and wrapped Zhuowen in an instant. "Hey, wait, teleport me to the host region of the Xian-Mi heavenly domain. Don't be in such a hurry," Zhuowen said hurriedly. Unfortunately, the Black King was faster. The black energy wrapped Zhuowen and took him away in an instant. "Ah, did that brat say something just now? Did he want me to teleport him to some host region?" After the teleportation, the Black King patted his huge head with his claw. But soon he laughed and said to himself, "It must be my illusion. How could I be wrong? Ha!" The empty and lonely starry sky was cold and empty. Countless meteorites and broken stones were floating around. A beam of light landed on a medium-sized meteorite. When the light faded, a slender young man in black appeared. Zhuowen stood on the meteorite and looked around. After confirming that this was indeed a starry sky in the starry sky battlefield, his face darkened. He knew that the Black King was unreliable, but he did not expect him to be so unreliable. This was the second time that the Black King had teleported him to another place. "Damn it, even if I die in the future, I will not let the Black King teleport me," Zhuowen thought to himself. After calming down, he took out the starry sky map. After confirming his current location, he sent out the space-time roulette and flew toward the encampment of the starry sky battlefield. When Zhuowen returned to the encampment of the human race in the starry sky battlefield, he immediately realized that the atmosphere in the encampment was not right. Most of the cultivators in the encampment were in a hurry and were ready to go. It was as if they were preparing for the upcoming battle. When he landed in the eastern encampment, the situation became even more obvious. Moreover, the moment Zhuowen entered the encampment, he used his spiritual force to scan the entire encampment. Zhuowen's spiritual force was very powerful now. It had even surpassed the peak experts of the Sky Reaching Master. When he scanned with his spiritual force, the 4 Tao Lords really could not detect him. After all, the quality of their spiritual forces was not on the same level. He realized that among the 4 Tao Lords guarding the encampment, the Eastern Tao Lord, Tan Xinghua, was not in the Eastern encampment. The other 3 Tao Lords were present, but they did not look too good. Zhuowen's eyes revealed a strange expression. He felt even more puzzled. Did the 4 Tao Lords encounter some trouble? Among the 4 Tao Lords, Zhuowen liked the Eastern Tao Lord, Tan Xinghua, the most. Zhuowen did not like the other 3 Tao Lords. After all, when he was asked to hand over the foreign race army, only the Eastern Tao Lord, Tan Xinghua, stood up and opposed the rest. Zhuowen disguised himself as a fierce-looking middle-aged man and entered the Eastern encampment. He did not attract too much attention. Sigh, it's such a pity that Tao Lord Tan has fallen just like that. His death was not worth it. Tao Lord Tan should have died in the war against the foreign race. He died in the hands of his own race just like that. His death was not worth it. As soon as Zhuowen landed in the Eastern encampment, he heard people sighing and talking beside him. The content of the conversation instantly caused Zhuowen's pupils to shrink. A surge of anger rose in his heart. Chapter 34:19. Crisis in the host region. Fellow Taoists, what happened to Tao Master Tan? I saw him alive and well a while ago. How'd he die? Zhuowen stood in front of the 2 people who were talking about Tan Xinghua and asked with a sincere look. The 2 of them should be cultivators from the Eastern Space Camp. One of them was rather old, in his 40s. He had a beard and looked very rough. The other was a young cultivator in his 20s. He was fair and clean and had the air of a scholar. The 2 of them looked at Zhuowen cautiously. The middle-aged man had a strange look on his face as he said, "My friend, don't you know? Sect Master Tan's death has spread like wildfire in the space camp. How can you not know?" Zhuowen explained, "I was in a dangerous place in the space battlefield some time ago and was trapped for a while. I just came out recently. When I returned to the space camp, I heard the 2 of you talking about Sect Master Tan. I was curious, so I wanted to ask about the details." As he spoke, Zhuowen gave the 2 of them a few high-grade Heavenly Path origin crystals. After the 2 of them accepted the Heavenly Path origin crystals, their expressions relaxed. They looked at each other. The middle-aged man nodded and said, "Since you are so sincere, I will tell you. This is not a secret. Now all 4 space camps know about it. This matter started from the sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Corp sect, Sakyamuni. Then, the middle-aged man began to speak. Zhuowen listened quietly. However, the more he listened, the more gloomy his expression became. From a middle-aged man's narration, Zhuowen finally understood what had happened in the host region. He also knew why Tan Xinghua had died, and it all started from the 10 Ultimates Corp sect in the host region. The previous sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Corp sect, Senki Yin, suddenly died not long after Zhuowen left the Xianmi Sky region. As Senki Yin's direct disciple, Sakyamuni took over as the new sect leader of the 10 Ultimates Corp sect. After Sakyamuni became the new sect leader, the 10 Ultimates Corp sect had been very peaceful. However, in the past 2 months, Indra had suddenly adopted a thunderous strategy. He had led the army of the Corp sect of the 10 Extremes to attack the Tao Palace forces of the host region, Fallen Star Mountain, Void Palace, and Sun-Chasing Temple. The sect leaders of these 3 Tao Palace forces were all captured by Sakyamuni. And after Indra used thunderous methods to take down these 3 Tao Palace-level forces, it shook the entire Xianmi heavenly domain. There was an unwritten rule between the Tao Palace factions, which stated that they were not allowed to attack each other's territories and start a war. After all, Tao Palace forces were the symbol of every precept domain. They had deep foundations, and once a war broke out, the impact would be terrifying. It would implicate many other small and medium-sized forces. Once a Tao Palace faction started a war by any means necessary, the other Tao Palace factions would join forces to suppress them. Originally, the Scarlet Mountain Manor, Falling Star Mountain Manor, Sun-Chasing Temple, and Void Palace had formed an alliance when the 10 Extremities Corp sect started the war. But what was even more frightening was that the new sect master of the 10 Ultimate Corp sect, Sakyamuni, was terrifyingly powerful, far surpassing the sect masters of the other 4 Tao palaces. Of the sect lords of the 4 great Tao palaces, only the sect lord of the Scarlet Mountain Villa managed to escape. The other 3 sect lords were severely injured and captured alive. Other than that, what was even more shocking was that the 10 Extremes Corpse sect had used something called the Dead Man's Flower. When the Dead Man Flower was planted in a cultivator's body, it could instantly absorb a cultivator's lifetime of cultivation and bloom into a bright flower. Cultivators of the 10 Extremities Corpse sect could advance quickly by absorbing the Dead Man Flower. Because of this heaven-defying item, the cultivators of the 10 Extremities Corpse sect were generally stronger than the other Tao palaces. Even if the other 4 Tao palaces joined forces, they would still be crushed by the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. What angered everyone even more was that after the 10 Extremities Corpse sect took over Falling Star Mountain, Void Palace, and Sun-Chasing Temple, the cultivators of the 3 great factions were all used to plant the Dead Man's Flower. Almost no one survived. After the Scarlet Mountain Villa's sect lord's army was defeated, he fled back to the Scarlet Mountain Villa and activated the sect protecting array. He also told the Eastern Sect Master, Tan Xinghua, about what had happened in the host region. Tan Xinghua was the Eastern Sect Master and also the overlord of the host region. Now that such a big thing had happened in the host region, Tan Xinghua naturally couldn't sit still. He led an elite team into the host region and headed to the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. When the various factions of the host region saw Tan Xinghua personally take action, they were all filled with hope. They felt that if Tan Xinghua took action, Sakyamuni of the 10 Extremities Corpse sect would be defeated without a doubt. Even the sect lord of the Scarlet Mountain Villa was filled with anticipation. Like everyone else, he thought that no matter how strong Sakyamuni was, he would still be defeated without a doubt if Tan Xinghua took action. After all, Tan Xinghua was a sky-reaching middle-stage expert. His strength was unparalleled and far surpassed all the cultivators in the host region. However, the battle between Tan Xinghua and Sakyamuni shocked everyone. Sakyamuni only used 3 moves to severely injure Tan Xinghua. His body was destroyed, and it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. After that, he was taken away by Sakyamuni. Although no one really saw Tan Xinghua fall, everyone knew that Tan Xinghua would definitely die if he fell into Sakyamuni's hands. It's Sakyamuni. Zhuan's eyes narrowed. He found it unbelievable. How did the Nadi Shiva's strength increase so quickly? Was it because of the Dead Man's Flower? Zhuan's face turned ugly. When he found the Dead Man's Flower in the underground space of the 10 Extremities Corpse sect, he knew that the Dead Man's Flower would definitely be a disaster in the future. Therefore, he destroyed all the Dead Man's Flowers in the underground space. However, he left the Dead Man's Flower and later gave it to the Pill Dao Immortal Alliance's leader, Ji Wuming. However, it was precisely because of this that Ji Wuming spent a lot of money to hire the Blood Prison assassins to kill him. Later, he found out that the Dead Man's Flower was researched by Ji Wuming. This guy was in cahoots with the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. After knowing that Zhuan had destroyed most of the Dead Man's Flowers, Ji Wuming killed Zhuan to silence him. Zhuan was very sure that he had destroyed all the Dead Man's Flowers in the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. However, the Dead Man's Flowers had appeared in the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. He knew that all of this had something to do with Ji Wuming. After all, he had left the Dead Man's Flower for Ji Wuming to appraise and expose the evil deeds of the Corpse sect of the 10 Extremities. Now, it seemed that Ji Wuming had returned the Dead Man's Flower to the 10 Extremities Corpse sect. Zhuan was a little annoyed. When he had returned to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, he had killed Ji Wuming. He had not thought about the Dead Man's Flower that he had given to Ji Wuming. If he had thought about it, he would have asked Ji Wuming about the whereabouts of the Dead Man's Flower. At that time, he could have followed the clues to the 10 Extremities Corpse sect and completely destroyed the Dead Man's Flower. Then, this series of troublesome things would not have happened. Fellow Taoist, are you okay? The middle-aged man saw that Zhuan had been in a daze and could not help but remind him. Zhuan came back to his senses. He cupped his fists at the middle-aged man and said, "Thank you for telling me so much, fellow Taoist. I still have one question." Chapter 34:20 Sealed, Sect Master Tan has fallen. Did the other three sect masters not take any action? The Nadi Shiva's actions have disrupted the balance between the various precept regions. They must be punished, Zhuowen said in a low voice. Sigh, the Nadi Shiva is too powerful. He defeated Sect Master Tan in 3 moves. He is suspected to be a late-stage Tong Tian master. The other 3 sect masters are hesitating. Moreover, that Sakura has already said that he was originally a cultivator from the host region and would only target the host region. He wouldn't touch the other Dao regions. That's why the 3 Dao masters haven't made a move until now. The middle-aged man's eyes were filled with anger. He was very dissatisfied with the 3 sect masters' actions. Zhuowen's expression was not good. The 4 sect masters were supposed to be on the same side. Now that Tan Xinghua had fallen, the Eastern Precept region had been disrupted by the 10 Ultimate In-Corpse sect, and they had spread evil things like the Dead Flower. If the 10 Ultimate In-Corpse sect continued to develop, it would definitely threaten the other Precept regions. As for the promise made by Sakyamuni, Zhuowen felt that it was no different from a fart. Although Zhuowen despised the actions of the 3 sect masters, he did not intend to look for them. His identity was very sensitive now. If he was exposed, it would be very troublesome. Now that he had heard about the situation in the host region, Zhuowen was very worried that Ryuka would be involved. Therefore, he only wanted to rush back to the host region as soon as possible. "Thank you, my friend." Zhuowen cupped his hands and thanked the middle-aged man. Then, he hurried toward the teleportation array of the Eastern Cosmic Camp. When Zhuowen arrived at the teleportation array to the host region, he found that the teleportation array to the Eastern Precept region had been blocked. "Why did you close the teleportation array to the host region?" "Our sect is still in the host region. It is being invaded by the 10 Ultimate In-Corpse sect. We have to rush back to help." "Yes. Why did you close the teleportation array?" "You have no right. The Eastern Cosmic Camp belongs to Sect Master Tan, not you. Open the teleportation array and let us go." Many cultivators had gathered at the teleportation array. These cultivators had heard about what had happened in the host region and wanted to return to their respective sections. After all, in the sect, there were their senior and junior brothers, relatives, masters, disciples, and other close people. How could they sit still when something so big happened in the host region? All of them requested to return. The 3 cultivators guarding the teleportation formation all had bitter expressions on their faces. They hurriedly consoled them. "Everyone, please calm down. This is an order from the 3 Dao Lords. No one is allowed to leave the camp. After all, the alien race's army could still invade." The Eastern Space Camp is a very important strategic location. It can't be left empty. The explanation of the 3 cultivators immediately ignited the anger of the crowd. F*CK, our brothers and sisters and our families are all in the host region. You're stopping us from going back, and you're telling us to stay here and guard against the invaders. How dare you say something like that? I don't care about the non-human army. My sect is in deep trouble, and you want me to continue guarding here? F*CK, your sister. Do you really want me to curse your ancestors? Everyone's anger was ignited. Some of them even unleashed their powerful auras, wanting to attack and push the 3 cultivators guarding the teleportation formation away. Although the 3 cultivators were not weak, there were simply too many cultivators gathered outside the teleportation array. There was no lack of powerful cultivators among them. The 3 cultivators were quickly defeated and left the teleportation array with their heads and faces covered in dirt. This teleportation formation is sealed by a sealing force. Who's the formation Dao Master here? Break the sealing force on this teleportation formation. The crowd rushed to the teleportation formation, but was quickly blocked by a sealing force. Everyone's expression was unpleasant. Among them, there were a few cultivators who were proficient in formations. After these cultivators observed the sealing force, Their expressions turned ugly. This was because they realized that the sealing force was at the heaven ascension level. They had no ability to break it at all. Damn it. It must be a heaven ascension level formation Tao Master sent by the other Tao Lords to set up this sealing force around the teleportation formation. Damn it. The crowd was depressed. With the teleportation formation sealed, their chances of leaving the Eastern Space Camp and heading to the Eastern Tao Lord region were slim. Oomph. Who allowed you to gather here? All of you disperse. Suddenly, a thunderous voice rang out and attracted everyone's attention. A figure swept over from a northern space camp near the eastern space camp and appeared above the crowd in an instant. It was a burly middle-aged man in a light yellow robe. His eyes were filled with arrogance. It's a northern Tao Lord, Yao Jianyuan. The crowd immediately noticed the middle-aged man and recognized his identity. Their eyes were filled with fear. Zhuoan, who was mixed in the crowd, looked at Yao Jianyuan with a gloomy expression. He could sense a murderous intent from Yao Jianyuan. I've already told the other two Tao Lords that we'll take care of the matters in the Eastern Tao Lord region. However, you gathered here to cause trouble. Are you looking down on us Tao Lords? Now, return to your positions. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude, Yao Jianyuan said coldly. The aura of a heaven ascension master in the intermediate stage suddenly erupted and spread around the teleportation formation like a tide. The cultivators who had gathered around the teleportation formation felt Yao Jianyuan's terrifying aura and retreated. He was an elite in the intermediate stage of the Heaven Ascension Master and a Tao Lord. He was not someone they could go against. To put it bluntly, in Yao Jianyuan's eyes, they were just ants. Tao Lord Yao, you keep saying that you'll take care of the matters in the Eastern Tao Lord region. However, you haven't done anything. Now, you're even stopping us from leaving the Eastern Space Camp. Is there any logic in this? Moreover, we're free to enter the Eastern Space Camp. Now that you're restricting our freedom, aren't you violating the rules of the Space Camp? Someone in the crowd retorted. Oomph. The foreign tribe army may attack at any time. If you leave and the foreign tribe army invades, the entire space camp may be destroyed. Who's going to take responsibility for this? I'm the Tao Lord. Of course, I have to take responsibility for the space camp. Yao Jianyuan said coldly. When the foreign tribe army invaded, you didn't do much either. Instead, you wanted to surrender. If it wasn't for Master Zhua, the space camp would have been destroyed. It's all because of Master Zhua that the space camp was saved. It has nothing to do with you. If Master Zhua or Tao Lord Tan didn't allow us to leave, we would have obeyed. However, you don't have the right to do so. Chapter 34:21. Yao Jianyuan's Fury. Yao Jianyuan's face darkened. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he looked at the cultivator who had just spoken. Whoosh! Yao Jianyuan attacked decisively. Violent energy swept out and set off a terrifying storm. Many of the cultivators below were swept away by the storm and fell to the ground. Some of the cultivators were even worse off. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and their faces were pale. The cultivator who had mocked Yao Jianyuan was pale. Just as he was about to retreat, his neck was restrained by an energy. Then his feet left the ground and he was lifted into the air. He floated in front of Yao Jianyuan. You've got guts. How dare you mock me? I'm the Tao Lord of the North. You're just a soldier of the Starry Sky Camp. How dare you offend me? What a joke. Yao Jianyuan said darkly. The cultivator's face was terrifyingly pale. His body was trembling, but he was unyielding. He said hoarsely, Am I wrong? Isn't Master Zhua the one who defeated the alien army? What did you do back then? The alien army has retreated into the primitive celestial domain. They won't be able to make a comeback in a short time. Our sect is in deep trouble, but you're stopping us from going back to help our sect. Aren't your intentions sinister? Or rather, you're in cahoots with Sakyamuni from the host domain. Yao Jianyuan's face turned even uglier. He was furious. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. As he spoke, energy surged in Yao Jianyuan's hand. The cultivator in Yao Jinyuan's hand looked like he was about to die. He knew that he couldn't survive in the hands of a mid-stage Tao Lord like Yao Jinyuan. The cultivators below couldn't bear to see him die. They were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. Yao Jinyuan was too powerful. Moreover, he was a Tao Lord. Even if he killed a cultivator, he only needed to pin a crime on him and he wouldn't be punished. Bang! Just as Yao Jinyuan was about to kill the cultivator, a powerful energy swept out from the crowd and hit Yao Jinyuan's arm with great precision. Yao Jinyuan was not prepared at all. All his attention was focused on the cultivator in his hand. Puchi! The energy was as sharp as a blade as it landed on Yao Jinyuan's arm. Following that, a muffled Puchi sound was heard. Yao Jinyuan's arm exploded into a bloody mist. His right hand was actually blasted into fine powder by the energy. Blood splattered everywhere. As soon as Yao Jinyuan's arm exploded, the cultivator whose neck was in Yao Jinyuan's grasp immediately retreated at top speed. At the same time, the cultivator who was out of danger was also dumbfounded. He was prepared to die, but who would have thought that Yao Jinyuan's right hand would suddenly explode? However, he quickly realized that there must be some expert secretly helping him. All the cultivators present were dumbfounded. They didn't expect something like this to happen. It was too unexpected. As a Tao Lord, Yao Jinyuan's strength stood at the peak of the astral battlefield. In a space camp, no one was a match for Yao Jinyuan, but now, the powerful Yao Jinyuan's right arm had exploded so easily. This was probably something only an expert of the same level could do. At the thought of this, everyone's gaze shot to the back of the crowd at the same time. There was a fierce-looking middle-aged man. Many people saw clearly that the energy that exploded Yao Jinyuan's right arm was unleashed by this middle-aged man. Who is this person? I don't think I've seen this person before. I'm not sure either. He's never seen this person before either. However, this person is very powerful. He actually injured Tao Lord Yao. This isn't something an ordinary cultivator can do. The crowd discussed fervently. They all subconsciously retreated far away from Zhuowen. Although Zhuowen injured Yao Jinyuan, they all knew that it was a sneak attack. Now that this person was exposed, he would have to suffer Yao Jinyuan's wrath. This was going to be bad. Although they were very resentful towards Yao Jinyuan for stopping them from leaving the Eastern Space Camp, they were just complaining. However, they didn't dare to attack Yao Jinyuan, who was a highly respected Tao Lord. This was a place where people would die. They wouldn't really offend Yao Jinyuan. Now, this middle-aged man attacked without saying anything and even injured Yao Jinyuan. This guy was simply courting death. They didn't dare to get too close to this guy in case they were implicated. The cultivator who escaped from Yao Jinyuan's attack also noticed Zhuowen. He cupped his hands towards Zhuowen to express his gratitude, but he didn't have any intention of getting closer. His eyes were filled with fear. He had just walked between life and death and had a lingering fear in his heart. He didn't dare to offend Yao Jinyuan again. Zhuowen naturally noticed the crowd's sudden separation and guessed what they were thinking. He didn't care too much and raised his head to look at Yao Jinyuan. At this moment, Yao Jinyuan's gaze also landed on Zhuowen. His face was extremely gloomy and his expression was terrifyingly cold. He suppressed the anger in his chest and looked at Zhuowen as if he was looking at a dead man. "How dare you sneak an attack on me?" Yao Jinyuan took a deep breath and said in a cold voice that was filled with killing intent. Zhuowen's expression was calm as he said, "Tao Lord Yao, you better not slander me like this. When did I sneak an attack on you? I was only trying to save that fellow cultivator. Speaking of which, you're the one who's been bullying us. We're free to enter and leave the space camp. Now you're restricting our freedom. What's the meaning of this? Moreover, this is the Eastern Space Camp, and you're only the Tao Lord of the Northern Space Camp. If Tao Lord Tan were to give us orders, we'd accept it wholeheartedly. But who do you think you are? You've crossed the line by ordering us around." Zhuowen's voice was very calm, but his words were filled with hostility. Every word he said was filled with sarcasm towards Yao Jinyuan. Yao Jinyuan couldn't stand Zhuowen's sarcasm. He said coldly, "Brother Tan and I are like brothers. Now that he's no longer around, I naturally have the responsibility to maintain order in the Eastern Space Camp. I don't want a troublemaker like you to cause chaos in the camp. Like brothers? If that's the case, then Dowlord Yao should go to the host region to find Sakyamuni and take revenge for Dowlord Tan. What's the point of talking here? Are you trying to show off your ignorance and cowardice? Zhuowen laughed coldly. How dare you offend me again and again? You're courting death. Yao Jianyuan couldn't take it anymore. Every word Zhuowen said was like a sharp sword that stabbed into his heart. He was speechless. In the end, he chose to use violence to suppress Zhuowen. He wanted to kill Zhuowen directly. Yao Jianyuan was very confident in himself. This cultivator who appeared out of nowhere was quite strong. However, he only managed to break one of Yao Jianyuan's arms by sneaking an attack. Chapter 3422.8s A footpad at this moment. Yao Jianyuan made his move. With a flip of his hand, he blasted out a palm strike. Terrifying energy exploded, as if the nine heavens' profound thunder had descended upon the world. The continuous explosion was terrifying. The moment Yao Jianyuan made his move, the momentum was so great that all living beings in the star battlefield could feel it. The two Tao masters, LV Yelyong and Mei Zian, who were originally in charge of the Western Cosmic Campsite, were also awakened. The two of them walked out of their seclusion and looked towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. Over at the Cosmic Campsite, a terrifying energy appeared in the sky. It had the power to destroy the world and swept over. It was abnormally terrifying and eye-catching. Is this Yao Jianyuan's aura? Is he crazy? Why is he attacking the Eastern Cosmic Campsite? Is he going to destroy the Eastern Cosmic Campsite? The Western Tao Master, LV Yelyong, looked gloomy. He took a step forward and rushed towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. What is Yao Jianyuan doing? The Southern Tao Master, Mei Zian, couldn't hold back either. He also took a step forward and rushed towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite. Not only LV Yelyong and Mei Zian, but the other cultivators in the Cosmic Campsite were also awakened. They all gathered towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite, wanting to see what was going on in the Eastern Cosmic Campsite that caused such a terrifying energy fluctuation. As the crowd gathered towards the Eastern Cosmic Campsite, Yao Jianyuan floated in midair like a god or a demon. His remaining left hand had already struck out. The powerful energy condensed into a golden palm the size of a mountain. It whistled through the air and landed on top of Zhuowen's head. The cultivators near Zhuowen had already retreated far away. They looked at the golden palm in shock. They knew that Yao Jianyuan was really angry. He didn't hold back in this attack. Its power was too terrifying. It felt as if the entire world was going to collapse because of this palm, especially the cultivators who had complained about Yao Jianyuan before. After feeling the terror of this attack, their faces turned pale. They swore to themselves that they would never speak carelessly in front of Yao Jianyuan again. In the hands of such a powerhouse, they wouldn't even be able to withstand a slap. Boom! The golden palm was very fast, and it landed on Zhuowen's body in an instant. The blazing golden light instantly engulfed Zhuowen's figure, making it impossible for anyone to see him. On the ground where Zhuowen was standing, terrifying cracks began to appear. Then it began to collapse, forming a deep and terrifying pit. It was pitch black like an endless abyss. This fellow Taoist is dead for sure. It was fine if he just moved his mouth, but he might not even be killed. He's got some guts, actually daring to make a move. Now that he's angered Taoist Yao, this is the only outcome. The surrounding cultivators shook their heads and sighed. When they saw Zhuowen being killed just like that, they felt a little sad for him. After unleashing that palm strike, Yao Jianyuan slowly retracted his right hand and placed it behind his back. His eyes shone with arrogance as he looked around. When he saw that everyone was as silent as cicadas in winter, their eyes filled with fear and reverence, he felt very satisfied. It seemed that the effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey was not bad. In the future, the cultivators of the Eastern Camp would no longer dare to oppose him. Although his right arm was broken and he was angry, he felt that killing the cultivator who offended him was too easy on him. However, he was also quite pleased to receive such an obvious effect of killing the chicken to warn the monkey. This is your full strength attack. The so-called Taoist master's strength seems to be a little weak. Just as everyone was discussing and Yao Jianyuan was feeling proud, a cold and ruthless voice came from the deep pit below. The sound of footsteps was accompanied by the sound of footsteps. The footsteps were very regular, but when they stopped by everyone's ears, they had a different kind of magic, causing them to involuntarily stop talking and freeze in place. The expression on Yao Jianyuan's face instantly froze. His eyes almost popped out as he stared at the pit below. There, a figure slowly appeared. He was very familiar with this figure. It was the middle-aged man he thought was dead for sure. When Zhuowen completely appeared in front of everyone, the clothes on his upper body had been completely torn, revealing his strong body. Moreover, his body exuded a glazed brilliance that constantly flowed around him, as if he was forged from the most exquisite jade in the world. Everyone was in disbelief. They had indeed seen Yao Jianyuan's full strength attack smash down on Zhuowen's body with a golden palm. However, there was no wound on Zhuowen's body, and not even a drop of blood flowed out. How terrifying was this guy's physical body? It actually withstood the full strength attack of a Taoist master in the middle stage. It was really unbelievable. Yao Jianyuan was also shocked, especially when he saw Zhuowen's perfect physical body. He felt his hair stand on end and felt a sense of panic. Courtesy demands reciprocity. You had a good time beating me up just now. Now it's my turn. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a trace of a wicked smile. His right foot suddenly kicked off, and he shot out like an arrow from a bow. Yao Jianyuan's expression changed drastically. He immediately took out his life artifact and protected his chest. This was a heart-protecting mirror, forged from bronze and flowing with a golden luster. It was very extraordinary. Zhuowen's fist smashed into the heart-protecting mirror, and a terrifying power exploded out. Cracks actually appeared on the heart-protecting mirror, and then it shattered into pieces, shattering into countless pieces. Then, Zhuowen's fist was like a rainbow that pierced through the shattered heart-protecting mirror and ruthlessly smashed into Yao Jianyuan's chest. Puchi! Blood splattered. Yao Jianyuan's eyes widened and his body trembled as he looked at his chest in disbelief. He saw that Zhuowen's fist had penetrated his chest, and blood spurted out from his back, splashing into the air and sprinkling down, turning into a rain of blood. And his heart, under the terrifying force of the fist, had already exploded into pieces. Cough! Yao Jianyuan coughed out a mouthful of blood. He stared at Zhuowen. Until now, he still couldn't believe that he had been defeated just like that. In just one move, he was beaten half to death and was now on the verge of death. Zhuowen's eyes were cold. He suddenly shook his right fist, and Yao Jianyuan grunted and kept retreating, escaping from Zhuowen's fist. But the moment he escaped from Zhuowen's fist, his chest was ruthlessly trampled by a foot. His sternum caved in, and he fell to the ground like a meteor, smashing a deep human-shaped hole in the ground. Yao Jianyuan tried to stretch out his hands to support his body, trying to stand up. Unfortunately, he had no chance. Zhuowen landed on the ground, and his feet were on his chest, using him as a cushion to stand. At this moment, all the surrounding cultivators were dumbfounded. Looking at this extremely dramatic scene, they wondered if they were hallucinating. It was unbelievable that Yao Jianyuan had been defeated so easily. Chapter 34:23. Ruthless. Yao Jianyuan roared angrily. He felt extremely humiliated. He was the Northern Taoist master, one of the highest commanders in the Star Wars battlefield. He had a noble status, but now he was being stepped on by Zhuowen in front of everyone. His posture was too ugly. Divine light flashed on Yao Jianyuan's body. He was about to explode, but he was suppressed by Zhuowen and could not move. Do you want to die so badly? Zhuowen's foot stomped down on Yao Jinyuan's mouth. A powerful force exploded out, and Yao Jinyuan's jaw was dislocated. His flesh and blood were mangled, and his voice became indistinct. He couldn't make the correct sound. It's finally quiet. Zhuowen clapped his hands. The surrounding cultivators were all dumbfounded. They cursed in their hearts, "This guy is too fierce." Not only did he step on Yao Jinyuan like a stepping stone, he even stepped on his mouth because he thought he was noisy. This is a little too horrible to look at. Yao Jinyuan was terrified. His jaw was badly mangled, and the intense pain almost made Yao Jinyuan faint. He did not dare to scream anymore. The guy in front of him did not play by the rules. He was so unscrupulous. He was really afraid that if he angered this guy, he would attack fiercely and kill him. Whoosh whoosh. At that moment, two streams of light suddenly appeared above the Eastern Starry Sky campsite. A powerful aura filled the entire Eastern Starry Sky campsite. Everyone looked up and saw two dignified men. One of the men was wearing a long yellow robe. He had a high-nose bridge and was quite handsome. The man in the yellow robe was the Western Taoist master, L.V. Yelyang. The other man in the silver robe was the Southern Taoist master, Meizian. The arrival of the two Taoist masters caused an uproar. All the cultivators were in an uproar. In addition, above the other three camps, there were many figures flashing and flying over. They were like a swarm of locusts densely packed together. They knew that the terrifying battle here had attracted the attention of the cultivators in the other Starry Sky campsites. Meizian and L.V. Yelyang hovered above the eastern space camp. They immediately saw the huge crater below them and the terrifying energy waves that had yet to dissipate. It wasn't hard to imagine how terrifying the battle he had just experienced was. Then, the two of them finally saw Yao Jinyuan. When they saw Yao Jinyuan lying on his back in the pit, his chin was almost broken and he couldn't even speak clearly. A figure stepped on Yao Jinyuan's chest, using him as a footrest. The two of them fell silent, and then they were shocked. The guy was actually using the Tao Lord of the Northern Daylord's body as a stepping stone. As for Zhuowen, under Meizian and L.V. Yelyang's dumbfounded gazes, he used his feet to rub Yao Jinyuan's chest, causing Yao Jinyuan to wail in pain. Then Zhuowen straightened his body, straightened his back, and put his hands behind his back. He pretended to look deep as he looked at Meizian and L.V. Yelyang. It was as if he was invincible and lonely in the world. When Yao Jinyuan saw Zhuowen stepping on him to show off, he was so angry that he almost jumped up and fought with his life. He wanted to slap Zhuowen to the ground and let him know why the flowers were so red. However, he didn't dare and could only fantasize in his heart, because Zhuowen had already shown him why the flowers were so red. If he dared to move, there was no telling which part of his body would bloom again. Who is this guy? Meizian was stunned. He was completely frightened by Yao Jinyuan's miserable state. He looked at Zhuowen with fear, especially Zhuowen's demeanor of an expert. Meizian and L.V. Yelyang were afraid of attacking him. They cursed him in their hearts. I don't know this guy, but I guess he was the one who fought with Brother Yao just now. This guy is not simple. Look, he is intact and has no injuries at all. This is incredible. L.V. Yelyang said with fear in his voice. Meizian nodded. He also found it incredible. Yao Jinyuan was an expert in the middle stage of the Sky-Reaching Lord. He was one of the four-path lords on the starry battlefield. He had a high status and great strength. In the Xianmi heavenly territory, there was no one who could be a match for Yao Jinyuan. No one in the Xianmi heavenly territory could threaten Yao Jinyuan unless it was a real expert from the Sky-Reaching place. But now, Yao Jinyuan had been beaten to a pulp by this show-off in front of them. Was this guy really an expert from the Sky-Reaching place? Thinking of this, the two of them were even more afraid. Meizian cupped his hands to Zhuowen and said, "Fellow Taoist, which force of the Sky-Reaching place do you come from?" Zhuowen, who had just finished showing off, wanted to continue to pretend to be profound. But when he heard Meizian's question, he was dumbfounded. He hadn't even been to the Sky-Reaching place. He didn't even know which forces were in the sky-reaching place, let alone which force he belonged to. But Zhuo knew that he had to finish showing off, even if he had to hold back his tears. His gaze turned cold and deep as he coldly scrutinized Mei Zian and LV Yelyang. When the two of them felt their scalps tingle, he said indifferently, "You are not qualified for me to tell you who I am. Today, I came down from the sky-reaching place and wanted to go to the host region to have a look. But I found that the transmitting formation was sealed. That's not all. This idiot came and made a big fuss. He even threatened us and threatened to kill me. He said I was like an ant. I've always had a good temper, but this idiot insulted me. I couldn't stand it. So I taught him a lesson and let him broaden his horizons." Yao Jianyuan, who was being stepped on by Zhuowen, heard Zhuowen call him an idiot. He rolled his eyes to protest against Zhuowen's impudence. Of course, Yao Jianyuan's petty actions were noticed by Zhuowen. He also made Yao Jianyuan pay a small price. He trampled on Yao Jianyuan's eyes. Yao Jianyuan screamed in pain and didn't dare to open his eyes again. Seeing Yao Jianyuan's miserable state, LV Yelyang and Mei Zian's eyelids twitched. It was too humiliating for a Taoist master to be beaten like this. Of course, this made Mei Zian and LV Yelyang even more afraid of Zhuowen. Their strength was almost the same as Yao Jianyuan's. Now that Yao Jianyuan was in such a miserable state, even if they attacked, they might not end up well. So they didn't dare to attack. Moreover, the two of them had long regarded Zhuowen as an expert who had come down from the sky-reaching place. He must have a strong background. They couldn't afford to offend him. If they offended him, they would be finished. After Zhuowen taught Yao Jianyuan a lesson in front of everyone, the latter immediately became obedient and played dead. Chapter 34:24. Dumbfounded. Mei Zian and LV Yelyang were very wary of Zhuowen. They spoke to Zhuowen courteously and cautiously, afraid of offending this ruthless person in front of them. Zhuowen's gaze deepened, and he looked like a lonely master. He said pretentiously, "Who do you think you are? Do you have the right to know my name?" As soon as this was said, everyone was stunned. This guy was too pretentious. He directly said that Mei Zian and LV Yelyang did not have the right to know his name. These two were the Tao masters of the star battlefield, the strongest mid-stage heavenly master. They were the strongest in the Xian Mi heavenly region. Normally, everyone would be extremely respectful and cautious towards these two people. Now, these two Tao masters had lowered themselves and asked Zhuowen for his name. He actually said that they did not have the right to know his name. This was too arrogant. Mei Zian and LV Yelyang were speechless, and their expressions were ugly. If they had not seen Yao Jianyuan's miserable state, they would have exploded. Mei Zian forced a smile and said, "Since you are unwilling to reveal your name, we will not force you. However, Yao Jianyuan is the Tao Master of the North and the representative of the star battlefield. Shouldn't you let him go?" Zhuowen looked at Mei Zian and LV Yelyang and said, "I am not a troublemaker. The reason I beat this idiot up was because he tried to kill me first. Now that he has received the punishment he deserves, we are barely even." Yao Jianyuan, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead, frowned slightly when he heard Zhuowen's words. However, he was cursing in his heart. "You were the one who attacked me first. I was just defending myself. You beat me up like this, as if you were wronged. I am so King wronged." Yao Jianyuan kept complaining in his heart, but he still pretended to be dead. He was really scared of Zhuowen. It was safer to pretend to be dead now. When Mei Zian and LV Yelyang heard Zhuowen's words, they heaved a sigh of relief in their hearts. They were really afraid that this ruthless person would go crazy and kill Yao Jianyuan. If Yao Jianyuan were to die, it would be a huge matter, and the northern space camp would be in chaos. The eastern space encampment was already chaotic enough. If the northern space encampment fell into chaos as well, the entire Star Wars battlefield would be in chaos. By then, it would truly be over. Tan Xinghua had already fallen. If Yao Jianyuan also fell, then the Star Wars battlefield would really be in chaos. Therefore, the two of them would never allow Yao Jianyuan to die. After all, his death would have a great impact on the human race. Then shouldn't you let Brother Yao go, fellow Taoist? LV Yelyang finally spoke. His tone was very polite. Zhuowen wasn't in a hurry. He said indifferently, "The reason why I had a conflict with this idiot was mainly because of this transmission array. I've already told you that I'm going to the host region to settle some matters. But this idiot insisted on stopping us, so I had no choice but to teach him a lesson. Now, I still have the same problem. If this problem can be solved, then what's wrong with returning this idiot to you?" Zhuowen's feet were still on Yao Jianyuan's body. He was very calm and wanted LV Yelyang and Mei Zian to solve the problem of the transmission array. Hearing this, Mei Zian and LV Yelyang suddenly looked troubled. The problem of the transmission array. Mei Zian and LV Yelyang hesitated and stuttered. "What? Is there a problem?" Zhuowen raised his eyebrows and moved his right foot fiercely on Yao Jianyuan's body. Yao Jianyuan, who was pretending to be dead, grimaced in pain. He couldn't pretend anymore and began to scream. "No problem. Absolutely no problem." Yao Jianyuan grimaced and immediately begged for mercy. He didn't want to argue about the transmission array anymore. He was afraid that if he continued to struggle, he would really be killed by Zhuowen, so he immediately compromised on this issue. LV Yelyang and Mei Zian saw that Yao Jianyuan had completely surrendered. They looked at each other and nodded. "We'll solve the problem of the transmission array for you. Now, I'll find you a formation Dao master to break this sealing power. This might take some time." "I don't have that much time," Zhuowen said coldly. As soon as he said this, LV Yelyang and Mei Zian's expressions turned ugly. Their gazes were gloomy. They felt that Zhuowen was forcing them. Mei Zian said awkwardly, "My friend, you're making things difficult for us. The sealing power around this transmission array is of heaven level. It needs to be broken by a heaven-level formation Dao master, and it's not something that can be broken in a short time. It's impossible for you to break this sealing power immediately." Zhuowen shook his head and said, "It's okay. I can break this sealing power. Just don't disturb me." With that, Zhuowen picked up Yao Jianyuan, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog, and walked toward the transmission array. At this moment, there was no one around the transmission array. Most of the cultivators had already left when Zhuowen and Yao Jianyuan were fighting. Although Zhuowen's voice was not loud, everyone heard him clearly. When they heard that Zhuowen was going to break the sealing power around the transmission array himself, they all had strange expressions on their faces. They had a full understanding of Zhuowen's strength. They knew that the former was very powerful, but they didn't believe that Zhuowen's formation Dao was that high. LV Yelyang and Mei Zian also had strange expressions on their faces. They didn't expect that Zhuowen was going to break the sealing power himself. Was he going to break the sealing power by force? Yao Jianyuan, who was in Zhuowen's hand, looked askance at Zhuowen and rolled his eyes at him. Obviously, this guy didn't believe that Zhuowen could break the sealing power. Zhuowen, on the other hand, directly punched Yao Jianyuan, causing Yao Jianyuan to scream miserably and almost faint. "My friend, shouldn't you let Brother Yao go now?" Mei Zian asked in a low voice. "Don't worry. After I break the sealing power around the transmission array, I'll naturally let this idiot go," Zhuowen said casually. Zhuowen came to the front of the transmission array and walked around it, silently deducing in his heart. When he stopped, he already had an answer. Then he took out the beast bone formation disc from the macro world and threw it out, surrounding the transmission array. This guy really knows about formation Dao? LV Yelyang and Mei Zian both had strange expressions on their faces. When they saw Zhuowen pretending to break the sealing power, they secretly wondered if this guy was just putting on an act. The people around them had similar thoughts as LV Yelyang and Mei Zian. They didn't quite believe that Zhuowen really had the ability to break the formation. Zhuowen didn't care about what the others thought. He was concentrating on his deduction. When the beast-bone disk array that was revolving around the teleportation array completely stopped rotating, a wave of energy ripples suddenly swept out in all directions. Then, the sealing power around the transmission array actually disappeared and was annihilated into nothingness. Chapter 3425. Bad news. This guy really broke the immortal grade seal around the teleportation formation, and he did it in less than 10 minutes? Mazian felt unwell all over. He was really shocked. It should be known that the Heaven Ascension Divine Master they had found in the Alchemy Array Tao Domain had spent 10 days and 10 nights to set up such a powerful sealing force. However, this guy had managed to break the seal in less than 10 minutes. Did this not mean that this guy's array Tao level was much higher than the immortal grade array Tao Master they had found from the Alchemy Array Tao Domain? Not only Mazian, but LV Yelyong, who was standing next to Mazian, was also stunned. His mouth was wide open, and he did not know what to say. As for the many cultivators in the space camp who were watching, they all became mutes. Their eyes were wide open as they stared blankly at the figure in front of the teleportation array that was as straight as a spear. Zhuowen looked calmly at the teleportation formation that had appeared in front of him. He had been studying the true record of alchemy arrays all the time and had inherited part of the legacy of the alchemy array celestial master. His alchemy array level was one of the highest in the universe. Zhuowen could tell at a glance that the seal around the teleportation formation was set up by an ordinary immortal grade array Tao Master. It was not difficult for him to break it. "I'll return this idiot to you." Zhuowen picked up Yao Jianyuan, who was lying on the ground, and threw him to Mei Zian and LV Yelyong without hesitation. He stepped into the teleportation formation, took out the corresponding heavenly Tao origin crystal, and activated the teleportation formation. White light surged, and Zhuowen disappeared from the teleportation formation. Not long after Zhuowen left the teleportation formation, the cultivators in the eastern camp were in an uproar. They rushed toward the teleportation formation, took out their heavenly Tao origin crystals, and planned to teleport away from the eastern camp. They were all disciples of the major sects in the host region. So how could they possibly ignore such a huge incident and stay in the eastern camp? For a moment, the area around the teleportation formation was bustling. Many cultivators were rushing to teleport away, and white light kept flashing. Mei Zian took over the half-dead Yao Jianyuan and stopped LV Yelyong, who was about to give chase. "Brother Liu, you are no match for this person. For this person to be able to beat Brother Yao to such an extent, I'm afraid that he's at least a late-stage powerhouse of the Heavenly Master Realm. Furthermore, this person's array Tao level is even more unfathomable. His background must be very great. He's not an existence we can provoke." Mei Zian warned LV Yelyong. Hearing this, LV Yelyong fell silent. He glanced at Yao Jianyuan, who was supported by Mei Zian, and said, "Let's send Brother Yao back first. Are we still going to stop the teleportation array?" LV Yelyong asked with a dark expression as he looked at the cultivators gathered around the teleportation array. Mei Zian shook his head and said, "Without the sealing power, we can't stop these people. Furthermore, we have already abided by our agreement with Sakyamuni. The expert who came down from the heaven accessing place is an unpredictable variable. He's a factor that we can't fight against. Anyway, we've done our best. Even if the Nadi Shiva wants to blame us, they can't blame us." LV Yelyong nodded. He glanced at the scene that was almost out of control at the teleportation array and did not stop it. Instead, he and Mei Zian took Yao Jianyuan and left the Eastern Starry Sky camp. Zhuowen appeared in an area full of meteorites. He stood on a huge floating rock fragment. He immediately took out his jade communication charm and sent a message to his father, Long Xiaotian, mother, Feng Xiao, and Lu Hantian. At present, the three of them were in charge of Ryuka. Since most of the forces in the host region had been conquered by the 10 ultimate Incorp sect and were basically used as nourishment for the flower of the dead, Zhuan was a little worried that Ryuka might have been affected as well. The Jade Communication Charm's transmission range was not far. There is also a powerful barrier between the star battlefield and the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, so he could not communicate with the cultivators in the Xianmi Heavenly Domain from the star battlefield. Therefore, the moment he was teleported to the Xianmi Heavenly Domain, he immediately sent a message to Long Xiaotian and the others. Soon, Zhuan received a response from Long Xiaotian. Zhuan saw that Long Xiaotian had responded and let out a sigh of relief. Since Long Xiaotian had responded, it at least meant that Long Xiaotian was safe and sound. However, after Zhuan read the message, his eyes suddenly turned blood-red and cold, and a flame of anger rose in his heart. Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, Earth Spirit Society. How dare you have designs on Ryuka? You must be tired of living. Zhuan's eyes widened, and he took out the space-time roulette and flew towards the Ryuka region. When he had first settled the Ryuka on the old side of the Huangji family, he had given the Ryuka resources that allowed the Ryuka to develop very quickly. They had quickly gained a foothold on the old side of the Huangji family and become a new Dao Palace-level faction. With the help of the Lightning God's Garden, the Ryuka was like the sun in the sky in that region. Many nearby Dao Palace-level factions were very wary of the Ryuka, and they intimidated everyone. Ryuka's rapid development and reputation gradually rose. In that region, many Dao Palace-level factions looked to the Ryuka as their leader. None of the factions doubted that as long as the Dragon Clan was given enough time, or rather, as long as the Dragon Clan could produce a mighty one who had reached the Heavenly Master level, they would immediately be able to leap into the ranks of the Holy Ji Palace. Just as the Ryuka was developing rapidly, the In Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates launched an indiscriminate attack on the entire host region. The In Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates breached the Zhuai Ri Temple in a short period of time. Most of the disciples and elders of the Zhuai Ri Temple were killed, captured, and turned into nutrients for the flower of the dead. In the end, they all died painfully. After breaching the Zhuai Ri Temple, the In Corp sect of the 10 Ultimates breached the mountain gates of the Fallen Star Mountain and the Void Palace. The sect master of the Scarlet Mountain Villa had joined forces with the sect masters of the Fallen Star Mountain and the Void Palace, but he had been severely injured by Sakyamuni. He had fled back to the Scarlet Mountain Villa, where he had activated the protective array and holed up in the Scarlet Mountain Villa. Originally, Sakyamuni had planned to completely destroy the Scarlet Mountain Villa after breaching the Fallen Star Mountain and the Void Palace. However, the Eastern Sect Master, Tan Xinghua, had received a request for help from the Scarlet Mountain Villa's Sect Master. He had come to the host region to suppress Sakyamuni, and he had engaged in an ultimate battle with Sakyamuni in the starry sky. This battle had shaken the entire host region, and it had been an extraordinary battle that had attracted the attention of tens of thousands of people. The two of them had battled for 49 days, and they had caused many planets to explode and star regions to collapse. In the end, Tan Xinghua had been beheaded by Sakyamuni. After this battle, Sakyamuni's name had spread throughout the Xianmi Sky region. Chapter 34-26, that Ryuka's crisis out of the 5 Dao Palace forces in the host region. 3 of them were wiped out in an instant. The Scarlet Mountain Manor, which was known as the most powerful Dao Palace force in the host region, was forced to activate their protective array. They could only hole up in a corner, not daring to come out. It had to be said that the 10 Extremes In Corp Sect's battle record was too glorious and terrifying. It had intimidated too many factions. Everyone knew that the 10 Extremes In Corp sect was so powerful mainly because of Sakyamuni. It was Sakyamuni who had developed the 10 Extremes In Corp sect to such terrifying heights. Because of this, many Dao Palaces and Dao Palaces in the host region had attached themselves to the 10 Extremes In Corp sect, hoping to be protected by the 10 Extremes In Corp sect and avoid being wiped out. The 10 Extremes In Corp sect was naturally happy to accept these subordinate factions. They even allowed these subordinate factions to help the Ten Extremes Een Corps sect invade other factions that opposed the Ten Extremes Een Corps sect. The Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society were rather famous Dao palaces in the host region. They were also 3 of the Dao palaces in the host region that had attached themselves to the Ten Extremes Een Corps sect. These 3 factions had joined forces to attack the Ryuka's base. From Long Xiaoyan's reply, Zhuo knew that the Ryuka were having a hard time resisting the combined forces of these 3 factions. Lu Hantian, Woody, and a large number of Ryuka's top experts had suffered serious injuries in this battle. Even Long Xiaotian and his mother, Feng Xiao, had suffered serious injuries. What angered Zhuo even more was that his grandfather, Long Xiangding, had been ambushed by a spy and was on the verge of death. Many of the Ryuka's alchemists were powerless to save him, and he was now in a coma. Furthermore, Ryuka was already in a precarious situation under the combined attacks of the 3 great powers. If it weren't for the help of the creation-level formation that Zhuo had left behind, Ryuka would have been destroyed a long time ago. Fortunately, the forces attacking Ryuka this time were only at the level of 3 Dao palaces, and the strongest among them were only at the Genesis level. If the Ten Extremities Een Corps sect had attacked, the Genesis level formation of Ryuka would not have been able to hold on, and Ryuka would have been destroyed in an instant. But even so, Ryuka is almost at the end of its rope. In Long Xiaoyan's reply, the former repeatedly warned Zhuo not to come back and stay as far away from the host region as possible. Zhuo did not reply to Long Xiaoyan's message. Instead, he rushed back to Ryuka as soon as possible. With his current strength, he was already standing at the pinnacle of this starry sky. No matter how strong Sakura was, Zhuo didn't think that Sakura's speed of progress could surpass his and that he would be his opponent. After resolving the crisis in Ryuka, Zhuo went straight to the Ten Extremities Een Corps sect to kill Sakyamuni. He knew that Sakyamuni had some special ability that allowed him to be reborn from a single drop of blood. This time, not only would he destroy Sakyamuni's soul, but he would also destroy his physical body. He would completely wipe out Sakyamuni's existence from this world. In the conference hall of Ryuka's base, Long Xiaotian was pacing back and forth, his eyes full of anxiety. The conference hall was very large. Other than Long Xiaotian, Feng Xiao, Lu Hantian, Woody, and other Ryuka's higher-ups were all present. Whether it was Long Xiaotian, Lu Hantian, or the others, their breathing was weak, their faces pale, and some of them even had blood on them. I didn't expect Winner to return to Xianmi, Celestial Region at this time. What a bad time to come back. Long Xiaotian's face was full of anxiety. Feng Xiao stopped Long Xiaotian and said anxiously, "Xiaotian, have you sent Winner a message? Tell him not to come, to leave the host region and go to a safer precept domain. This is a dangerous place, and it's not a place he can come." Long Xiaotian sighed softly. "I have, but you know Er's character. He knows the situation in the host region and the danger our Ryuka is in. Even if he knows that it's a dead end, he won't just sit back and do nothing. He will definitely come." Feng Xiao was so anxious that she was about to cry. She was Zhuowen's mother and knew Zhuowen better than anyone else. Just as Long Xiaotian said, Zhuowen would definitely not abandon Ryuka. When Zhuowen had settled them in the Huangji family's base and left Ryuka to explore alone, his cultivation was not even at the level of a creator. They knew that Zhuowen was very talented, but even if he had obtained some fortuitous opportunities, his cultivation was only at the level of a creator. With just this level of cultivation, returning to the Long family was simply courting death. Not to mention the fact that the Jade Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society had several creators. Even if Zhuowen could help Ryuka fend off the attacks of these 3 forces, the Ten Extremities Een Corps sect had many powerful cultivators. Especially after obtaining the Dead Man's Flower, which was a heaven-defying elixir, the number of elites in the Een Corps sect of the 10 Ultimates had increased rapidly over the years. Could Zhuowen defeat such a force? Given Zhuowen's character, He will definitely come here without hesitation. What we can do now is to hold on a little longer. Zhuowen is not an impulsive person, and he won't just charge in like this. As long as we hold on, Zhuowen may find a way to sneak in. I think that when the time comes, we can rely on Zhuowen's array formation skills to reposition the base's array formation. Then, we will have a chance to fight back. Lu Hantian stood up. His eyes flashed as he analyzed the situation for everyone. Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao looked at each other and smiled bitterly. They also felt that Lu Hantian's idea was the most practical. Zhuowen would definitely come. What they needed to think now was to wait for Zhuowen to arrive and find a better way to protect Zhuowen. Suddenly, a cultivator hurriedly ran into the meeting hall and shouted in a trembling voice, "Patriarch, something bad has happened. The base's array formation can't hold on for much longer." The people who were originally discussing in the conference hall immediately froze after hearing this sentence. Their eyes were all filled with disbelief. How is that possible? The base's array formation is at the pinnacle of creation level. It is impossible for Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society to break it in such a short time. Long Xiaotian said in shock. The cultivator knelt on one knee and said, "The immortal masters of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance are here. They are here to help Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society break our base's array formation." What? The Pill Array Immortal Alliance is also interfering? Our Ryuka has no enmity with the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Why would they help Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society go against our Ryuka? Long Xiaotian stared in disbelief. "Xiaotian, let's go out and take a look. If the base's array formation can't hold on, we can only fight with our backs against the wall." Feng Xiao immediately calmed down and said in a low voice. Long Xiaotian also calmed down and said in a low voice, "Let's go out. Hantian, go and arrange people. If the base's array formation is really broken, then we will fight." Chapter 34:27. Breaking through when Long Xiaotian and the rest walked out of the conference hall, they immediately noticed a youth in a long robe floating above the Ryuka base's large array. His eyes were filled with arrogance. At this moment, the youth was surrounded by array flags. His hands were forming seals as he tried to break the Ryuka base's large array. Under the attack of the long-robed young man, the Long family's encampment's grand array actually started to ripple and spread towards the surroundings. When Long Xiaotian and the others saw the long-robed young man, their expressions changed slightly. This youth was no stranger to them. It's the current alliance leader of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance, Zhu Wenlin. This guy actually came to help break our base's large array. Feng Xiao looked at Zhu Wenlin with an unfriendly gaze. Zhu Wenlin wasn't for the Eastern Dao region. He was a young Pill Array genius sent by the Pill Array Dao region. Speaking of which, Zhu Wenlin had been brought here by Bu Yangrong. Bu Yangrong had come from the Pill Array Dao domain to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance of the host region, mainly to assess whether Zhuo Wen had the qualifications to become the alliance head of the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. The result of the test was that Zhuo Wen's pill formation ability was above Zhu Wenlin's. But Bu Yangrong went back on his word and took away Zhuo Wen's position of alliance chief without permission, giving the alliance chief to Zhu Wenlin. Zhu Wen had never wanted to become the alliance leader. The reason he had taken over the position was because the Pill Array Immortal Alliance members had kicked up a fuss. After Bu Yangrong and Zhu Wenlin had arrived, the Pill Array Immortal Alliance members had changed their attitudes and supported Zhu Wenlin. Therefore, even though Zhu Wen's Pill Array skills were above Zhu Wenlin's, he wasn't in the mood to continue being the alliance leader. After he had resigned from the alliance leader position, he had gone to the Star Wars battlefield. He hadn't expected that he would take so long to return. After Zhu Wen's return, the Eastern Dao region had undergone a huge upheaval. All of this was something that Zhu Wen hadn't expected, and ever since Zhu Wenlin lost to Zhuo Wen in the alchemy battle, It could be said that he had always harbored hatred towards Zhuo Wen in his heart. All these years, he had been inquiring about Zhuo Wen's whereabouts. Once he found out about Zhuo Wen, Zhu Wenlin would contact many experts to surround and annihilate Zhuo Wen. Only by thoroughly killing Zhuo Wen could he resolve the hatred in his heart. Unfortunately, after so many years, Zhu Wenlin hadn't found any traces of Zhuo Wen. It was as if Zhuo Wen had vanished into thin air after the Pill Array Immortal Alliance's alliance. Pill Immortal Alliance of Zhu Wenlin's Yang. The Immortal Alliance Immortal Alliances. The Tao Immortal Alliance Immortal Alliance Alliances Immortals Immortal Alliance of Immortal Alliance Iman Alliance Immortal Iman Immortals Alliance Immortal Alliance Immortal Formation Array Tao Immortals. Zhu Wenlin was a genius of the alchemy array Tao domain. His status in the alchemy array Tao domain wasn't low. Establishing a relationship with such a promising alchemy array genius would only be beneficial to Sakyamuni. Furthermore, Zhu Wenlin had contributed a lot to the cultivation of the Dead Man Flower. When Zhu Wenlin had found out that Zhuan was a Ryuka disciple, he had rushed over to Ryuka without stopping to help the Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society break the Ryuka encampment's grand array. Zhu Wenlin's request was that after breaking through the Ryuka encampment, he had to bring all the Ryuka's relatives back to the Pill Array Immortal Alliance. Zhu Wenlin's idea was that since he couldn't find Zhuo, he would vent all his hatred on Zhuo's relatives. When Zhuo returned in the future and found out that his relatives had died in his hands, he would probably be in great pain and would take the initiative to find him. At that time, it would be the time of Zhuo Wen's death. He would invite many experts to encircle and annihilate Zhuo Wen. Zhu Wenlin's hands quickly formed seals, and the encampment's array shook more and more violently. Ripples of array Tao spread out, like ripples on the surface of a lake, surging outwards. It looked very dazzling and powerful. Behind Zhu Wenlin was a dense army. These armies were divided into 3 camps. There were the Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society. And in front of each of the 3 armies, there was a figure with a vast aura. These 3 figures were the Jasper Dock Sect Master In Gyun, the Beast King Gate's Sect Master Violent Jade Beast, and the Earth Spirit Society's Sect Master Gong Ziffin. The 3 of them stood quietly in front of the army. Their eyes flickered as they watched Zhu Wenlin wave the array flag to break the array. It's really easy to have such a divine array master. We don't even need to use a single soldier to break that troublesome array. Jasper Dock's Sect Master In Gyun laughed. In Gyun looked to be in her 30s. Her skin was whiter than snow, and she had the charm of a mature woman. Her figure was extremely hot, and her every move was filled with charm. Yes, although our sect also has a divine array master, compared to Alliance Master Zhu, they're not even a little bit inferior. Beast King Gate's Sect Master Violent Jade B-side. In addition, Alliance Master Zhu comes from the mysterious alchemy array Tao domain. His origin is not simple. Otherwise, Sakyamuni's Sect Master wouldn't have tried to build a relationship with Alliance Master Zhu. Earth Spirit Society's Sect Master Gong Ziffin echoed. The 3 of them were in awe of Zhu Wenlin. The loss of the alchemy battle had always been a pain in Zhu Wenlin's heart. It was also his reverse scale. Now that Feng Xiao mentioned it, Zhu Wenlin was so angry that he almost lost his mind. Bitch, just you wait. After I break this array, I'll be the first to kill you. Don't worry, I won't kill you immediately. Instead, I'll torture you slowly until you're dead. Zhu Wenlin roared angrily, and his actions became even more fierce and swift. The encampment's grand array rippled violently, and numerous cracks appeared on it. It was obvious that the grand array wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. The Ryuka people in the array were all nervous. Crack! When Zhu Wenlin threw down the last array flag, The encampment's grand array completely shattered into countless transparent fragments that scattered in all directions. Kill. Chapter 34:28 Tails the army descends. When the Ryuka base was completely destroyed, roars of war rang out like thunder, deafening to the ears. The joint army of Jasper Dock, Beast King Sect, and Earth Emanations Association appeared in the sky. Like dark clouds, they shrouded the entire Long family's encampment in shadows. You Ryuka bastards, you're dead meat. Zhu Wenlin had his hands behind his back as he hovered in midair, looking down at the Ryuka base. His mocking laughter filled the air above the Ryuka base. Long Xiaotian and the rest of the upper echelons were shocked. Han Tian, are you ready? Long Xiaotian said to Lu Han Tian with a serious look in his eyes. At this moment, Lu Han Tian was holding a spear and wearing golden armor. Behind him was the Ryuka army. Patriarch, we're ready. Lu Han Tian nodded at Long Xiaotian, then raised his spear and shouted, Kill. Those who invade the Ryuka will be killed without mercy. Kill. Kill. The Ryuka army roared like a tidal wave. Then, led by Lu Han Tian, charged into the sky and clashed with the combined forces of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society. The two armies clashed, and the air was thick with blood. Blades flashed, and swords flashed. It was a magnificent sight. However, the Ryuka army was only half the size of the Allied army. The moment they clashed, the Ryuka army was suppressed. However, the Ryuka army was full of vigor and did not fear death. They fought with their lives on the line. Although they were suppressed, it would not be so easy for the Allied army to defeat the Ryuka army. Lu Han Tian rushed to the front and brandished the long spear in his hand. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. His imposing manner was vast and mighty. Every spear attack was accompanied by splashes of blood. Lu Han Tian was very powerful. It was as if he had entered an unstoppable realm. Every spear strike was able to kill dozens of cultivators. Blood splattered everywhere. Oh, you're Lu Han Tian, the Ryuka expert second only to Long Xiaotian, right? Not bad. You're already a mid-stage creator. Unfortunately, you're going to die today, and you're going to die by my hands. A sinister voice suddenly sounded from Lu Han Tian's right translation. Accompanying this sinister voice was a terrifying blast of energy. Its target was the back of Lu Han Tian's head. Lu Han Tian's eyes narrowed when he felt the terrifying blast of energy behind him. He let out a low roar and twisted his body. He instantly turned around and held his spear in front of him to protect himself. He could feel that the owner of the voice behind him was attacking very quickly. He could not retaliate and could only passively defend. Bam! The terrifying attack fiercely smashed onto the long spear that Lu Han Tian was holding, and a formidable power burst out. The surrounding space started to collapse and collapse. Lu Han Tian groaned and was involuntarily sent flying. He only managed to stabilize himself after flying back several thousand meters. He looked at the figure standing in front of him. This was a middle-aged man whose entire body was filled with a berserk aura. His upper body was bare, and his firm muscles were exposed to the air like coiling dragons. Just by looking at him, he looked like a wild beast that had gone berserk. Lu Han Tian recognized this middle-aged man. This person was the Beast King Gate's sect master, the violent Jade Beast. It was said that this person's physical body was very strong and was not weaker than the powerful experts of the primitive heaven realm. Lu Han Tian's eyes were filled with fear. He knew that this violent Jade Beast cultivation was much higher than his. He was a P creator. Oh, your reaction is not bad. You were actually able to block my attack. Ordinary god of creation intermediate stage cultivators would be severely injured if they were hit by my attack. The violent Jade Beast raised his eyebrows, but his gaze fell on Lu Han Tian's gilded battle armor. He was not stupid. He naturally saw that the reason why Lu Han Tian was not seriously injured was mainly because of the gilded battle armor on his body. Without a doubt, this gilded battle armor was a high-grade divine artifact. Moreover, it was a defensive divine artifact. This was very rare. The violent jade beast sneered, "Lu Han Tian, take the initiative to hand over your gilded battle armor, and I'll give you a quick death. I'll let you die less painfully." Lu Han Tian took a deep breath. He had obtained this gilded battle armor by chance. It was a peak creator divine artifact. With this gilded battle armor, although his cultivation was only at the mid-stage of the creator stage, it was enough to fight against a peak creator. He snorted coldly and said, "It's still unknown who will win and who will lose. You want me to hand over my battle armor? I think water has entered your brain." As he spoke, Lu Han Tian stomped his right foot and rushed toward the violent jade beast like an arrow. "Haha, you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. You're courting death." The violent jade beast's face turned cold. He unleashed his aura, and his entire body emitted a fierce blood aura. He was like a wild beast, unparalleled in the world. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, Lu Han Tian and the violent jade beast collided fiercely. The violent jade beast held a scimitar in its hand, and saber light flowed around its body. It was very terrifying. However, Lu Han Tian did not retreat. His spear was like a dragon, and every spear could blast out a terrifying spear shadow. The saber light and spear shadow collided, and a terrifying power burst out. It spread in all directions, forming one terrifying wave after another in the void. It had to be said that the violent jade beast's strength was indeed above Lu Han Tian's. Lu Han Tian was completely suppressed, and his face was pale. However, the gilded battle armor on Lu Han Tian's body was very extraordinary. It emitted bursts of golden light, blocking most of the violent jade beast's attacks every time. But even so, Lu Han Tian was still severely suppressed by Yi Shiwen. After all, the violent jade beast was the sect leader of a Dao Palace level force. Although its cultivation was at the peak of the creator stage, its battle prowess was even more terrifying than ordinary peak creators. For Lu Han Tian to be able to tangle with the violent jade beast and not be defeated was already very impressive. When Lu Han Tian was attacked by the violent jade beast, the sect leader of Jasper Dock, Ying Giyun, and the Earth Spirit Society's sect leader, Gong Zifen, went to find Long Xiaotian and Feng Xiao respectively. As for the other creators of Jasper Dock, Beast King Gate, and Earth Spirit Society, they had their eyes on the other higher-ups of Ryuka. Long Xiaotian, it's said that you're the strongest person in Ryuka. However, your cultivation is only at the late stage of the creator stage. I'm afraid you don't live up to your name. Today I, Gong Zifen, will step on you and trample on you wantonly. The Earth Spirit Society's sect leader, Gong Zifen, appeared in front of Long Xiaotian like a ghost and shot a ray of light at Long Xiaotian. It's not certain who will be trampled on today. Long Xiaotian snorted coldly. He took out a saber and fought with Gong Zifen. Terrifying energy fluctuations exploded, and a terrifying mushroom cloud spread out in the sky above Ryuka. This was a phenomenon caused by the collision of powerful energy. Ying Guyun stared straight at the bronze mirror. She didn't continue to chase after Feng Xiao, but instead flew towards the bronze mirror. Feng Xiao fell to the ground, and her whole body was in pain. It was as if all the bones in her body were broken, and she couldn't move. Feng Xiao saw Ying Guyun chase after the bronze mirror and didn't continue to attack her, and she couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But soon, Feng Xiao's expression changed. She sensed a terrifying killing intent that she had never felt before. She turned her head and saw Zhu Wenlin slowly walking towards her, his face filled with undisguised killing intent. Feng Xiao struggled to get up, but unfortunately, her injuries were too severe, and she couldn't get up at all. She could only watch as Zhu Wenlin approached. Zhu Wenlin also knew that Feng Xiao's injuries were not light. So he was not in a hurry and slowly walked over.